Hello and welcome to Eastern Marshlands, an evening with Comrades. Tonight we have with us Batco.
Ayo.
We have Eugene.
Hello everyone, congratulations with the 100-year anniversary.
We also have Comrade Positus Pacman posting.
Orra!
Did I get your name right?
Well, the Positus Pacman, what happens when the whales move back? Hello.
That's the one. And I will be your host tonight, TK Jones. So, just before we start, I just want to remind everyone to smash that like and subscribe button so you can keep up to date on when we're going to be having live streams and podcasts.
Smash it like the state.
That's right.
Absolutely. Took the words out of my mouth.
Smash it hard.
This is what I keep saying to the people like on the podcast. Like I always forget saying to smash the like button and to subscribe. But you're on point on this. I always forget about that. Like you don't remind me, but like what the fuck?
Well, lads, let us not forget it is 100 years to the day.
100
years in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
In
also,
Soviet Russia,
while we will be doing this. Yeah, it's in Russia. Yeah, in Russian Republic that is no longer valid because the Soviet, the Petrograd Soviet, has proclaimed that the government in Petrograd is no longer valid, and the Soviets, the worker Soviets, are the legitimate government of Russia, and there is currently, well, not currently, exactly 100 years ago, there is an insurrection going on in Petrograd. I will be telling you about the latest news.
Yeah, because you're getting updates
for example,
accurate down to the minute from
Yes.
a Twitter account, isn't it?
Yeah, for example, yes, not from the Twitter, from Medusa.io, which is involved with like a couple of organizations that are commemorating this event, and they are doing like a live news feed of what's going down. For example, out of the latest news for you, from a prison Christie, the people, the Bolsheviks who were arrested for, like one of them was a Kronstadt Bolshevik, Semyon Roshal. They were released. The prison was stormed and they were released. Kerensky, the prime minister, said that the people who like he said that the people who are currently in the Bolshevik revolutionaries, that they are counter-revolutionary force, and we see that a lot of shit is going down in St. Petersburg. The army is coming down. As you know, during the revolution, army was quite neutral, right? There were a couple of regiments that took the side of the Bolsheviks, including the Pavlovsky regiment, who is currently occupying a street next to the Nevsky Prospect, which is the biggest and the main street in St. Petersburg, in Petrograd, I'm sorry. And they have 2 armored vehicles, a gun.
Damn.
I just love how
the newest thing, I'm sorry. The newest thing, this is very important. The Minister of Food Reserves, Sergei Prokopovich, his car has been stopped and he has been arrested. And they have arrested one of the ministers just now.
Oh, shit.
I keep forgetting
that's
that
great.
this is happening 100 years ago. I think a few of us have that as well. Like all of a sudden, oh my god, it's kicking off again. It's Bolshevik Revolution 2 Electric Boogaloo in Russia.
Pretty much, man.
Happening!
Happening
Yeah.
indeed. Fellas, you know, I've actually learned something a bit interesting about the Bolshevik Revolution when they stormed the Winter Palace. The guy who actually blew up, and a bit of a self-stroke right here, the guy who blew out the gates and chucked a bomb in one of the in the Winter Palace was an anarchist. An anarchist sailor.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
That's some quality left unity we got there.
Was he a Kronstadt?
Yeah, it was one of the anarchist sailors. I think so.
The Kronstadt, you mean? One of the Kronstadt people?
Well, didn't the Cockshott rebellion kind of happen in 1920? So, like, unless they kind of formed...
Well, the rebellion happened then, but there were, like, so-called Kronstadt sailors who... Like, for example, one of their leaders has been in prison just now, and they had their own, like, thing going down. They were with the Bolsheviks up until the rebellion. This is the problem.
Ah, well then that's
so
probably it. Yeah. So yeah, it was probably
because those guys have been amazing.
Yeah. Solidarity with the Cockshott fellas.
They
but
played
anyway.
a huge part in the revolution.
That's the interesting part. I'm not sure exactly. Like, I know they were an anarchist group, but I'm not sure. I wasn't sure exactly to what extent, because they're not like fucking Nestor Monk, no, fuck your currency and your land kind of guy. They're sort of they sort of sit in the middle of the anarchist spectrum. I'm not sure where they sort of sat.
They probably could have just been also just anarcho-communists because well, here's the thing though, Bakunin and Kropotkin were like the two major anarchists, and they were both Russian, and so they were the big anarchist daddies at the time. So I don't really know if they might have been Ann Combs or Ann Coles. So who knows? But either way.
I'm sorry, if I recall correctly, they were syndicalists.
Ooh.
At least they have been referred to as syndicalists. Maybe the chat knows what's up. Like, maybe the chat will tell us what has been going down, like why, what were they, but like not sure about this one.
Well, syndicalism, I think, started to really take form within the 1930s during the Catalonian Revolution.
Yeah.
So at the moment, syndicalism did have its basis within the Russian Revolution, but it wasn't a fully formed necessarily ideology put into practice. So you were either most likely to be an anarcho-communist, which was probably likely, considering that there was that a lot of people joined Nestor Makhno's Black Army after during that time, or they could have also just been regular anarcho-collectivists. But considering the fact that there was a giant funeral held for Peter Kropotkin when he died, that was in Russia, I would probably say that it's probably likely that due to the current synthesis of the dialectic, it's probably that they were very much likely Ancoms. Just out of pure speculation.
maybe. Like, I've went to the page of the leader of the Soviet Republic of Soldiers and Fortress Builders of Nargen, which is the basically the leader of the rebellion. And he is referred to on English Wikipedia as a Russian revolutionary and anarcho-syndicalist politician, and de facto leader of Kronstadt Commune. So I have no idea really what they're about. I know that they were for more workers' control than the Bolsheviks, quote unquote. But
So
like they were
was-
like, how about we take charge? No.
So, like 100 years ago to the day, what were they trying to call Russia? Were they just referring to themselves as Russia or the Soviets of Russia? Or something?
RSFSR. There was the Russian Workers' Soviet, then there was the Ukrainian Workers' Soviet, and all these different Workers' Soviets until eventually they sort of decided that one big union was in order. Except, that guy with his Black Army didn't agree, kind of, maybe.
That guy,
That
whoever
was
he may be.
That guy, the guy with the funny hat and the machine gun carriage.
Yeah.
That's the genius. This is the most genius fucking thing ever.
So
the
the
machine gun
Soviet
carriages.
Union we all know and love came about in 1922, was it?
So what came about?
The Union.
Union.
I would say that the Union really didn't take shape until after the end of the Civil War. So,
Yeah, more or less.
Really, I'll be honest. I think that the Soviet Union, as we came to know it, really didn't start until Lenin's death. Really, because up until that, it was a workers' state, but it kind of, let's be honest, the cult of personality thing kind of started with Lenin. And they sort of went, okay, Lenin was great. Trotsky came up and said, well, maybe we should start building socialism now and start expanding it. Stalin thought differently.
Let's try and keep it in one country.
Yeah, keep it in one country. Well, I think it comes around down to the different point of view. I mean, I'm not going to start a sectarian shit fight on our stream, but it's sort of like it comes down to the different point of view. Do you want to solidify Russia and industrialize the shit out of it and sort of build a strong base to build socialism off, or do you want to spread socialism straight away? Well, I would have argued, filthy trot that I am, that it's like, I think that the Soviets, even though they were during a war at the time, should have lent more help to the KPD and other communist organizations, at least, no matter how dire a situation they were in. Mainly because Russia on its own, I don't think could have done it, and we were proven right. But
that was post-Civil War in Russia period.
Oh yeah, but the Russian Civil War, I think what a lot of people forget is they seem to forget that it's sort of a forgotten footnote in history. History books never talk about the Russian Revolution, as I'm sure. How many of you guys? I mean, I'm sure Eugene would know because he was in Belarus. But
Yeah,
but between
there,
it's, a
man.
huge part, it's a huge part of our education. So.
yeah,
Oh,
with
it's a huge-
TK,
I learned about the Russian Revolution for my exams, and for my final exams in high school. It was a huge subject in our history lessons.
really, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I had a big
Yeah.
history class about the World War One leading up to the Russian Revolution, but
Yeah,
it would cut out any sort of like why they were doing it. Like,
Yeah.
the
yeah.
Bolshevik Party was trying to take down the Tsar. Why? Let's see what's happening on the Western Front. And they quickly shy away from talking about how the Tsar was oppressive and whatnot.
what we did is that we actually learned a bit about we learned about World War One in our high school. Then after a term later, we learned a bit about actually, one moment.
While he's doing his thing, I'd like to say that at the moment I'm doing some work,
Yeah, he's doing
and
some work.
I've just messaged. I have to message a lot of people. Leave it at that. And one of the people that I've been messaging just messaged. Her surname is literally Bro Chado, and I'm like,
Anyway.
oh my god, this is a giant beam. Okay, please go on.
Anyway, like I was saying, sorry about that. I just had to do some editing stuff, and I got a bit distracted.
Sure.
But basically, what I was saying is that during during our high school, we learned about World War One. Then the term later, we learned about the Russian Revolution and the effects that World War One had on Russia, on top of the Tsar being an absolute knob, and so on.
Right.
The thing is, though, and here's the funny thing, though, is that I distinctly remember this about what we learned about the communists in history, and what we were taught. And I'm sorry, this is going to start a huge shitfest in the chat, I'm sure. But what we were taught about, okay, in what ways did the Bolsheviks had to compromise on their principles in order to continue on going? And one of the huge talking points that our teacher talked about, and she kind of did she was very articulate about this. She said, and I shit you not, they didn't give the workers the means of production. That was that was one of the key facts we learned about. She said they never gave the workers the means of production. It was all owned by the state, and the only way, and also they had to compromise their principles with the NEP stuff. So in a sense, actually, come to think of it, in regards to my high school education, my high school education was pretty fucking woke in hindsight, because I learned because I learned about George Orwell and his fight with his fight against the whole cult of personality that Stalin tended to cultivate, while learning that he was an anarchist before we started.
He was a democratic socialist.
Well, yeah, but basically he fought alongside anarchists, to be exact.
Yeah.
Then, on top of that, we also learned a bit about Metropolis and the whole German cinema. But we also learned when I did legal studies, I also learned how the UN was basically as useless as tits on a bull, and was in a sense kind of, and NATO was basically an imperialist power. In hindsight, my education was woke, and I kicked myself. And I kicked myself in the back of the head, just saying, why wasn't I a communist earlier, or an anarchist for that matter? And I was going, why? It's been laid out before me, and I was so blind until now. But now, hey, here I am.
So well, you learned about You learn about World War One's effect on the Russian Revolution. Was a part of the Bolsheviks' popularity because they wanted to exit the war?
Pretty much, yeah.
Fucking yes.
Well,
this was so important because, let me quickly say that, if you look at the Russia after the February Revolution, right? Basically, the new government was like, okay, let's build a nice bourgeois democracy, and we will win the fucking war because of our obligations to our allies. We need to push, and the people were like, no, fuck it. we better not. And the Bolsheviks was like, no, we need to stop that shit because this is not the war that we should be fighting, and people don't want it. Then why would we fight it? And so they started agitating at the front. They start to get the military, and this is what we keep forgetting as modern leftists. No, American military is an imperialist force. Fuck American military. Fuck American military, but American soldiers are the only thing that we can rely on in terms of like real insurrections. The military and the police need to be radicalized, and the Bolsheviks understood that. And they went ahead and they did it. And in Germany, they did the same. And basically, what it resulted in is they formed their Soviets, right? And they were like, work as Soviets, let's do our own government. Fuck the provincial government, provisional government. We will do our own government. And basically, Russia existed for almost a year with two governments. One obeyed to the Soviets, one obeyed to the provisional government. And at that point, the army was like, you know what, fuck it. And literally, I've got a tweet from, like, again, I was following this thing for almost a year. This, live tweeting of the revolution on Twitter. All of those accounts talking about this. Basically, there was a tweet that said that the provisional government is no longer a valid government. It's only the workers' Soviets that are legitimate now. And we shall do 3 promises that we wanted to do. A peace treaty with Germany. We are out of the war. Fuck it. It's time to go home, boys. The second, workers' control over the means of production. That's it. The power is now in the hands of the workers. And 3, the land is no longer belongs to the rich landowners. The land now belongs to all of the people. Yes. And so this is what they promised, and this is what they sort of delivered and not delivered on. It depends on how do you interpret it from your ideological standpoint, but this is what was the main task, because they said, fuck it, it's crazy, let's go on. Let's move on with our lives.
But in regards to the whole, we need the whole police and the military stuff. However, in a alternate, different material condition scenario, Mr. Mochno was able to completely say, well, to the cops and to the state, and formed his own little gang of little insurrectionists. And they pretty much utilized platformism and rallied a shit ton of peasants and workers and just taught them how to fight. So,
I respect that. I completely respect that. But, I believe that in the current situation, right, that we live in now, when you start this sort of shit, just, start doing it, what will happen is that your front yard, you will have a bunch of fucking National Guards just standing there with, M16 saying, what up, what you doing here, boys? And then the fire commences. Exactly.
Well, we've seen.
What is that? What is this gun on the fucking car? What is that? Nothing. Don't mind that.
But then again, and it is true that what you say, Eugene, that the material conditions do definitely vary. But I would also like to point to a bit of an anecdote in which the anarchists in Greece have also pretty much made their own kind of dare I say, quite notable efforts, pretty much killing 2 Golden Dawn members. And on top of that, a majority of the cops within Greece are, and I shit you not, members of Golden Dawn. So now I'm not saying that, now again, of course it is different dialectics because we don't really have a Nazi party in Australia. But nonetheless,
not yet.
Give it time.
Not yet, maybe. Who's just
one nation counts, I think, but.
But even then, I don't see them unapologetically celebrating Hitler's birthday or whatnot. But
well, the UPF and Black Cottrell, they were doing that.
Oh, all right. Now.
Oh, Black Cottrell.
Oh yeah, Black Cottrell is deep into the Hitler love, and he went to a pub celebrating Hitler's birthday and whatnot, and he was trying to get people to sign up to his Fortitude Party to read Mein Kampf.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Seriously, when I read I do have a copy of it. I read my copy of Mein Kampf, and the one thing that really interested me is it sounds like, those fucking vlog posts you see of those angsty teenagers with side fringes?
Yeah.
All over fucking That book is just entirely one of those in concentration. Like the fucking Jews, it's their fault. They're ruining my life. They didn't let me into art school, and now I feel like shit. I'm like, whoa.
And the fucking French. What the fuck?
But I think the thing that really just made me chuckle the most was when he actually started talking about how black men were stealing the white woman. That was like, I just went, okay, yeah, okay. This is Pole all over again. I can understand.
This is Pole before it was Pole.
Yeah, exactly. No wonder why they're basically, yeah. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get the insight into Pole without even having to interact or go on to Pole, just pick up a couple of Mein Kampf. Yeah, that's it.
Mein Kampf now with furries.
Oh my god. The anime, the manga redux of the Mein Kampf.
Anime.
This is a startup idea.
I actually would fucking watch that just for the giggles.
We already have a manga Das Kapital. We need a manga Mein Kampf. Oh, by the way, I think Mein Kampf is banned in Belarus, like completely. Yeah, it's banned. You are not allowed legally to own the copy of Mein Kampf.
I don't think it's allowed here either. I think you have to have a.
How did Blair Cottrell get his copy then?
Well, I don't know. Like, I found it very hard to get a copy. I had to import mine.
Yeah, because distribution of it is banned. Yeah, distribution of those books are banned, basically.
Yeah, fellas, I just finished the video. I'm sorry, you go.
Okay, I was just saying that it's really hard to get those books because the distribution of them are banned. And funny enough, if you look at the list of extremist materials in Belarus, I think I mentioned it to some people, but like you can access online what are considered to be extremist materials in each country, and those things are not allowed, in the country. So things like
you're saying it sounds like you're saying excrement material as opposed to extremist material.
Extremist. I'm sorry. I'm just distracted.
Well, both would be an accurate surmise. But...
Yeah. What is interesting about the Belarusian list is that, mind you, we are an ex-Soviet republic, right? Mm-hmm. We have the streets named after Lenin and Kropotkin, we have a Kropotkin street, yeah.
You have a Bolshevik town, don't you?
We have a little village called the Bolshevik village.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off right there, Eugene. If there isn't a bakery on Kropotkin Street, I'm going to be so fucking disappointed.
Me too.
I demand a bakery. And if there isn't one, I'm flying to fucking Belarus and you and me are opening the motherfucker.
I shit you not. No, I'm actually going to come in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fly over, right? I'm going to fly over. I'm going to swim over, and I'm going to bring my army of cassowaries and kangaroos and boomerangs, and I'm basically going to ride in on my cassowary, wielding a giant fucking breadstick. There is. Yes.
There is.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a bread shop. It's a bread shop. Oh my god. Yes. Is it Kropotkin?
Eastern Marsh.
No.
There's bread.
Fucking bread factory right next to it. It's a bread factory number 2. It's on Kropotkin Street. Is it? Oh my god! I know this place.
The bread has been conquered.
Yes,
that's it. We can all go home now.
Kropotkin's spinning in his grave.
No, he's not spinning in his grave. He's just having a bit of a fucking celebration.
No,
it's but unfortunately,
Kropotkin Street, House 33.
But unfortunately,
this is amazing.
But unfortunately, even though he's kind of dancing, he also kind of he kind of stops in the middle and kind of ponders, and he goes, "Yeah, I still have to pay for it though."
Yeah.
Was Kropotkin around during the Russian Revolution?
He was actually, yeah.
Oh, really?
And he actually predicted that it was going to turn into an authoritarian state. I shit you not.
And he met with Lenin and he talked with him and he was like, you know what, I don't really like your thing, but I still support the revolution. Fuck the bourgeoisie. I like this part. This whole vanguardism thing, not really a huge fan of this part.
Very clever, but not for me. Oh, greetings, Spoogs. Welcome.
Hey.
Mario.
Spoogs is here.
What up,
We have the
Spoogs?
boys.
So what were like all
big
the
hours.
other revolutionaries of the world doing
Well,
100 years
Emma
ago
Goldman was there.
Doing
Like in Russia?
Yeah, she was in Russia because she was exiled. Remember?
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
Exiled.
Tell the story.
Well, here's the thing. Emma started conducted a general strike within America, but but she also notably did not support the war effort. She said, "Do not sign up. Don't go to the war." And because of this, because it was during the war, she got imprisoned for it. And then eventually she was able to negotiate, and then eventually she got exiled to Russia, which just so happened to be starting a revolution during that time. And she met Kropotkin, who she just formed an instant friendship with. Like they just got along really well. She even I even think that she might have even met Makhno. I think I'm not too sure. I think that she. I don't think she did, but she did hear about her, and she said, "Hey, that guy's pretty cool. I like him."
Mm-hmm.
And but then she also kind of said, "Yeah, the whole Bolshevik stuff. I mean, the Vanguard stuff. Not too keen on that. Not too sure."
I don't know. I think Vanguard theory has its roots in I think it has its roots in pragmatism. I think, but it's more like it's how to stop that. I think the biggest problem was. Which I think Zixi did a really good video on this one, is that when you don't have when the working class isn't at an advanced enough stage to manage and control the means of production, because in Russia, not like 1/3 of them were literate, if that, less.
Yeah, and there were like
they can't run
a lot of like proletariat wasn't a huge class, you know.
Yeah, which makes the issue that now they can't actually inherit the running of the state, and they can't actually coordinate it themselves. So what happens is you have bureaucrats, but the problem is the bureaucrats became so powerful that when the transitionary period was finally ready under Khrushchev and under Stalin, if you want to go that early, the bureaucrats had built up so much power that they didn't want to give it up.
Yeah, it was I remember there was a phrase. I don't know what is the source for it. What's his face? The Crimson Flag. I think he's a council com. He was a Marxist-Leninist, but he became a council com, and he one of the council five, the 5 council communists on the internet. The head of the council communist party on the internet is obviously Goulash guy, and there are 5 of them. Yeah, all 5 of them. Basically, we talked to each other. We talked about this thing, and he said that what Bolsheviks failed to abolish is not even the class relationships between, because during Stalin we could pretty much say that the society was already classless. There were no nepman, there were no property holders. It was classless society. But what they failed to abolish is the capital relationship. It was still hierarchical relationship between the proletariat and the capital. And the capital started to be managed by the state. Yeah, basically the state still holds the authority over the capital, and this is the problem. And so, if there was more democracy in terms of how the surplus value is dealt with, and not in a party democracy, but general workers' democracy at the workplace, industrial democracy. So we could have been talking about a completely different Soviet Union, completely different.
Yeah, man. We can hope and we can dream. Oh, speaking of hopes and dreams, though, I'm sorry to really bring down the mood, and I'll make it up to you because I just uploaded my 100th anniversary vid. But to bring down the mood, just to kind of make it to bring us all within the feels. Did you guys read that article of the time capsule that was retrieved?
Oh, my feels.
No, tell me the story.
Okay, so they basically released a time capsule that was made in 1967, I believe, during when the USSR was still around.
Yeah.
Said, okay, well, don't open it until 2017, and then So basically, they open it, and basically it reads well, we hope that you have achieved full communism and you have made contact with extraterrestrial worlds, and it just went, oh no. We didn't achieve. I'll read it to you. Hang on a second. Let me just get up the article. Time capsule.
Is it like a letter from Soviet school kids?
Yeah, oh, something like that. I might have been.
Yeah, they did that a lot. They did that, like,
Yeah, this is it.
with war veterans and whatnot.
Hits you right in the feels.
Yeah.
In Russian City, a time capsule of Comrades to the future. So, 50 years ago, when the citizens of Cherepovets gathered in the same spot, it was to celebrate the achievements of socio-economic system they deemed eternal. Pride in its achievements, coupled with an unshakable belief in the future under socialism, infused a letter that they slipped inside a steel capsule and placed on a hollow monolith brought to the square. And it reads, "Today we are building communism and you will live under it. Our message to your generation, stay true to communism's ideals and fearless in the fight for the welfare of the working man."
Oh, fuck.
Oh,
Right in the
how
fucking
far we've
field,
slipped
man.
from that.
Oh, that's some nice depression.
Yeah, that was
Right in the
but
Oh,
Kilometers
God. This
per
is just... I don't
Look.
even have any words to say to that.
Hey, look,
like,
to lift the mood a little bit, the fact that all of us are sitting here proves that the fight's not over.
that is
yeah.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're
Like,
sitting here,
understand
the
that.
fight's not over yet.
well, I was
And
thinking,
speaking of the never-ending fight, you can check out the video because I just posted it in the chat, the Google Hangouts. If I could post it on your live stream, hopefully everyone can go and see it.
I've already put it into the chat
All right,
for you.
excellent.
I saw that it was uploaded live, spread to the world.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the thing to remember with, like, it's 100 years ago. I've said that too many times. 100 years ago to the day that the revolution happened, and there's so much history that's gone on. But it was done by people like ourselves, you know, the working class of the world, networking, coordinating, and it's possible that we could have another 100 years of socialist progression and revolution. We just got to stick with it.
Okay, couple of news about what's going down in the revolutionary Russia at the moment.
Breaking news from 100 years ago. What do we
So
got?
what do we know by now is that the Bolshevik told that the Kerensky's government is no longer valid. Kerensky left Petrograd, and the minister Prokopovich has been arrested. Ministers of the provisional government have arrived to the Winter Palace, and they have been shocked by the fact that Kerensky wasn't there. So yeah, we will go back to the. I think I don't know if we will be alive at this time, but like in about the Winter Palace will be stormed. You should know that this will happen. But what we know is that the Kerensky is the city of Gatchina, and he is moving towards the city of Pskov at the moment. So the dude is basically on the run. And the Bolsheviks have created a revolutionary war committee that is founded on the basis of the Moscow Soviet, and Grigory Usievich is the head of this committee. So the people are militarizing, the Soviets are militarizing really fucking fast.
What was Kerensky's deal? Because he was essentially in charge of Russia with the provincial government, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a prime minister. Basically, this whole thing, this provisional government was created to transition later on to a parliamentary republic. So, and they have been trying to create this, republic with like a Duma and parliaments and like Senate and whatnot. So like went the general Republican route. The problem was that the people have been so terrible at the job that the socialists were like, okay, people, those guys are completely useless. Let's take the working class let's give the working class a chance to rule this place. And so this is why the insurrection has basically started, because the shit they have been doing, like with keep the war until the victory, yay, it's complete bullshit. Like they failed tremendously.
Hey, Becca, that's kind of creepy. That's kind of creepy.
What is
the video you made, and then the stylistic choice, and then you put it up against this one? That's kind of creepy. I love it. That's
what is?
Well,
You
no,
mean
I
the-
was looking at your video and I was looking at mine. I was like, hang on.
Oh,
Oh, yes. So
it-
the listeners
vibe.
at home, I think we're all looking at Positive Pacman's anniversary.mp4 with Andrew WK music, and then we were just having a look at Batco's anniversary song with Andrew WK music.
oh
I think.
shit! Great minds think alike.
You got something to say for yourself, Batco? Hmm?
Oh, well,
Yeah. Oh.
yeah. Well, well, fucking. Marco did nothing wrong. That's what I have to say. Did it?
You got to rename yourself Batco the plagiarist.
No.
But don't you know that copyrights are fucking spook a LeMay?
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. Intellectual property is spooky as fuck.
Oh, nice. Two people are arguing about how they use the copyrighted material of other band. Oh, it's you ripped me off. No, you ripped me off. Both of you ripped off another band. Like, what the fuck?
Like,
Just
what
chill
can we
already.
say? Fucking Andrew WK fucking gets the blood pumping. He's a good.
And he's fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's going to be Andrew WK.
Some things about what's going down in revolutionary Petrograd and whatnot. Basically, this man who is the leader of the military revolutionary committee, the guy, like his story, what happened with Grigory Alexandrovich Usyevich. He was after the insurrection. He went to Siberia to organize military there, and he died in battle in 1918, and against the White Army, basically. And at the moment, his commissars have went to Mariansky Palace, and there was a pre-parliament in the provisional government, had a pre-parliament in the Mariansky Palace in Moscow, and the Nikolai Ovstyeniev, he was the leader of the pre-parliament. He has been given a paper that basically said, "Fuck off, dude. You're no longer in charge." That's it. There is no more pre-parliament in Moscow.
Well,
So yeah, that's it. Bye.
democracy is a spook.
This
hell with
is
the
The parliamentary democracy is a spook.
This is true.
This is the democracy manifest. By the way, this pre-parliament leader died in New York in 1943.
Oh, well, how about that?
Well,
Though
that solves that little problem.
I wonder
Yeah,
though.
they were socialist revolutionaries, so they were socialists, but like not really Bolshevik revolutionaries. Those guys were like second international Mensheviks, basically. They were allies of the Mensheviks.
So there was like
He was a fucking sock them.
Yeah.
So there wasn't just one revolutionary movement. There was several. The Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, the
Yeah, there were a lot of things. There were a lot of socialists. The difference between the Bolsheviks and the other ones, like basically the Bolsheviks were in the Marxist camp. They were the only ones who said, you know what, fuck provisional government, workers' democracy now. And others, like social revolutionaries, who were really what we currently call SOCDEMs,
Yeah.
those guys were like, okay, chill just a minute. Just chill a minute. No violence, no insurrection.
No insurrection.
Reform.
No violence. Well, where's the fun in
Anarchists
that?
and Bolsheviks are like, what the fuck? Are you
Yeah, I was going to
serious?
say, no violence, no insurrection. What are you, some fucking liberal? What are you?
All I know is that the plumber for the Tsar's summer home toilet is working fucking overtime because that guy is shitting his pants right about now.
Another news from the Petrograd. The schools now. All the schools have been closed for today. The children have to go home now.
Yes.
They've cancelled school.
the children
Abolished school.
grab their
Abolished
curtains and join the revolution.
What's the bet? What's the bet that fucking the students overthrow the teachers? Basically,
Revolution now.
like student councils start to form, like actual student councils.
Actually,
You know,
you're
basically
joking about that.
Yeah, I know, but then
You're joking about that, but
I know, yeah.
but
Oh god.
I can tell you that basically, remember we were doing this collab for the answer to NCAPs that we're doing right now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was one question about the schools and the school system and like centralized educational systems. And because I'm sort of connected to the pedagogy myself, because I'm getting a degree in English language as a teacher of English language. And I'm not going to work in this sphere because I just need a fucking degree mostly. But I have some knowledge about the pedagogy and the history of pedagogy in Soviet Russia. And what they have been doing with the school, the Bolsheviks, right after the revolution was fucking amazing. Like, I'm going to use this story as like my contribution to the collab. But like before Stalin, they were like, you know what? Let's ditch the educational system we have now. We have universal education for everybody who wants to study can study, right? It's completely free without like want to go to university, exams, whatnot, like for everybody. But they said, you know what? Centralized educational systems suck. Like the system we have been doing up until now, and actually doing still, this, Prussian school system is created to make slaves of us. And they said, you know what? We need to experiment and give more power to the students and to the teachers to actually form their own educational system.
Holy shit.
And basically, they said, we will have like a Ministry of Education, but it won't be a Ministry of Education in traditional sense. Basically, as you know, Lenin's wife, she was an educator, and what's her name? Krupskaya. Nadezhda Krupskaya. She was people's commissar, educational people's commissar, people's commissar in education. And what they did, they created a vague framework for how education should operate. They said there should be theory, practice, and labor as three. It was the theory, so like academic knowledge, the labor, which is how you apply your knowledge, and basically the context, how knowledge affects the world. They said these are three fundamental pillars of any worker's education. And what we need to do is to let people do their own education system based on those three pillars. And they gave teachers power to form their own schools, to do whatever they fucking want with that. And the amazing part about that, it was really fucking successful.
When I tried to overthrow my kindergarten teachers when I was younger.
That's right, because this system, the system that we have been living with, basically when Stalin came, he brought back all the good old fucking Prussian education, fucking schoolrooms and whatnot. It all came back.
God damn it, Stalin. One job.
You had one job, Stalin. You had one job.
Maybe they call us anarchists for a reason, because because of that school system, and all the students basically said, "Well, what the fuck? I hate the state now." So they've,
yeah, basically.
And the teachers basically said, and the teachers of those people said, "Oh, fucking little anarchists," because they were kids acting like anarchists. So that's where the name came from.
But you know what? In Soviet systems still retained a lot of this, labor education that they have been talking about. So basically, you should understand how your knowledge applies to the real world. Basically, there were students of agriculture, right, who have been studying crop rotations and whatnot, and how to work the land. And basically what they did, those students, like 17, 18-year-olds, they, as the part of their education, they went to the countryside, right? And they educated themselves, the peasants, to teach them how to do better crop rotations and how to work the land better. It would improve. And so this is the way they gave the knowledge, and they applied the knowledge to the real life. Or, for example, there was a ditch, in the middle of the village next to the city where the university was. And they said, okay, you need to fix it. And they worked on the project to fix this fucking ditch that was a huge bummer to the village. And they created an education that was made to improve the world around them. Like, current education is not made for that, right?
Not really.
Especially we're talking about special education and
education right now. Is it some would say the cultural Marxists have gotten to the kids of Australia already, and they're handing out the Communist Manifesto, and then others will say it's it's a neoconservative nightmare, and they're teaching everyone economics 101.
Well, I don't know. Like regarding education, whenever I hear student union, I have that unfortunate image in my head, which you get, or which I know Batco and Noah, at least I know Batco would have because he's a uni guy.
Yeah.
I went to uni as well in my city for a year anyway before I had to go working the wage slavery. But anyway, that's off topic. What happened was, whenever I hear student union, I just get that cringy image of, you know, resistance and the you know, Socialist Alliance and all that sort of those. Basically, you're talking about liberals who talk tough. You know, I remember walking home from classes one day, and I'm walking down through the main shopping strip of my city, and there's this massive rally going on against education cuts. Now, it would have been so easy for one of these people to actually, you know, go and take it to the, you know, the Ministry of Education, because their office is nearby, and go in and like basically storm the building, at least because they were proposing huge cuts to education. But instead, they're singing and they're chanting and they're, you know, we'll fight back, we'll resist this cut to our education funding. We'll do it by writing a letter. You know, like you say cut back, we say fight back, cut back, fight back, cut back, fight back. And I'm like, I'm sort of standing here looking at this, and I'm like, seriously, guys. It's like, come
You could have
on,
literally went there. What the fuck? If you know where it is, just like go there. Fuck it.
The high
I mean,
school.
I mean, fuck it. I may as well just gotten a Molotov, lit it, trucked it, thrown it in the educationer's office, and basically they would have all been gulping at me, and I would have just said, "Oh fuck it, I did your job for you. Fuck off now."
Yeah,
I don't think you
the high
understand,
school.
Becco. Violence is very, very bad, and it never gets anything done.
Oh,
It's bad.
Daily reminder, ladies and gentlemen: violence is not the answer. It is
Except
a
when it
question,
is.
and the answer is yes.
Any issue in the world can be solved with the proper application of high explosive.
Exactly.
This is the facts.
This is the
It's
fact.
made by illegalists gang.
Gang, gang, gang. Or should I say, bang, bang, bang.
That reminds me, when you were telling us about the time capsule, I was half expecting it to like be a thing like, this is a message from 1967 to the
Send
people of the
news.
future. Your mom gay!
No. You know what I would have done? I would have done the What I would have done, I would have written that spiel, but at the end, I would have done that cheeky little thing where you say, "I don't look down," and you put your finger, index finger, and your thumb together to create a circle.
Yeah. That old schoolyard joke.
Yeah.
I love that.
I would have done that.
Truly revolutionary.
Comrades, we have achieved
Okay.
full communism. Now
We
what?
have it. Indeed, we have it.
While we are talking, a funny news just happened. In Revolutionary Petrograd, as you remember, the Mariinsky Palace in Moscow has been stormed by the Bolsheviks, by the Soviet government, and they said "fuck off" pre-parliament. What just happened 12 minutes ago? Mikhail Alexeyev, the General Mikhail Alexeyev, who is the High Commander of the Russian army, just attempted to get into the palace, but the soldiers told him to fuck off. That's it. That's very nice. Also, he said that the guard should let him in because he is a fucking even as an chief commander. But what the person said that, Your Highness, the entrance to the palace is completely out banned. And wait a second, I'm translating from Russian into English as I read, so it's rather complicated. And he's not allowed to let him in because in minutes. in minutes there will be some extreme decision making to be made in a building, so he's not allowed. He went away after it was known that the pre-parliament is going home, and in a couple of minutes, another officer went out of the building and was really sad by the fact that they didn't arrest Mikhail Alexeyev.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
The free Parliament is going home. Yes.
Yeah, it's going home. Also, the Moscow Military Revolutionary Committee has just sent a telegram to every single neighborhood of Moscow, and they have commanded the military to stand up and to go on the 24-hour alert. Yeah. And the Soviets are having a meeting in 3 hours.
Oh my.
Yeah, the Soviets are gathering and they are having a meeting. Moscow Soviet is gathering. So, like, shit is going down in Moscow and in Petrograd. The fuck, revolution is up, my dudes.
It seems a little uncoordinated, though, in certain areas. Because we've got people taking the bridge with anti-aircraft guns and other people, like, I don't know who this guy is. I better let him, just not allow him into the building. Walks off and he's supposed to be arrested.
It was a leader. It was an ex-leader of the military, and it's happening in Moscow while the anti-aircraft guns and that military is in Petrograd at the moment. So we see that Moscow is revolutionizing at the moment. Like, they have already come under the power of the Moscow Soviet, while in Petrograd it's like more hectic at the moment. Like, the ministers are like walking around to the Winter Palace looking for the prime minister. Prime minister is somewhere else, not in the city even. So, like, it's more chaotic in St. Petersburg at the moment.
Do you think this anniversary of the revolution and the rise of, like, socialism and whatnot, with 1 in 5 millennials supporting Lenin and Stalin and whatnot, do you think this is this is our time to once again
I mean,
have red flags down the street?
It's very possible that we might even be seeing red and black flags being flown, but because but then I'm not just sure if you guys are aware, but in Australia, a majority of our future jobs are pretty much going to be part-time.
Yay.
Yeah. And on top of that, a majority of our housing, 60% of Australian citizens, I believe, within New South Wales or what was it, Queensland? Oh no, maybe in general, who knows? I'll have to look it up. But basically about 60% are going to be living in rented houses. They won't have their own personal houses or private houses. No, they have to rent those houses, and that probably means that they're going to be living with people who aren't like friends or family, who aren't like in a family, for like a good majority of their life.
Don't you just love capitalism?
I just love it.
Yeah, it's there's an increase in leases. Instead of a year to 2 years of a lease, people are demanding to have 10-year leases because the people demanding it are families, working class families who don't have enough to buy their own home yet, but they need somewhere to live, to have, mum, dad, and the little babby and the dog somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they need to not have to move in the next couple of months because like, anecdotal evidence, I admit, but there was at one point where I was a filthy decadent capitalist and I had $2,000 in my bank account.
But then, fucking pig.
Yeah. But then I had
having money.
I mean, I have 10 grand for a new car, but that's not the point. Go on.
Yeah, I had to move house. And when I moved out of my parents' house, I moved into somewhere where I had mates, and they had already paid the 2 weeks rent and the bond, and everything was already moved in, and they had a fridge and they had a chair for me to sit on. But then when we all moved to a new house, I no longer had $2,000 because I had to pay 2 weeks rent, bond. I had to pay moving to a new house. I had to get shelving units to put all my stuff on. So even if somehow there's this strange equilibrium, and everyone's living in a rented apartment, and they're just making enough. If they have to move from one house to another, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Because they have to pay all this money just to move, and then pay even more money to exist in a rented house that isn't even theirs.
Housing
God damn it,
prices
guys,
in
it's-
Australia are fucked. Like actual fucked.
Yeah, not just the house itself. If you want to sell it, rent is going up constantly.
Yeah, dude, it's nuts.
Yeah.
We
You
are
know
actually
what?
in a housing
It reminds
crisis.
me. It reminds me of a very interesting episode. Oh, by the way, Larkus, Russian Comrades, what up? He's in the chat. Basically, it reminds me of an episode of Discourse. Wait, what's it called? Podcast. It was left as a Discourse Collective. Yeah, Discourse Collective. They are very interesting. They're a very cool podcast. Leftists, you should check it out. They're everywhere. Basically, those guys had an episode about a housing crisis in California. And what has been going down there. And there have been like a couple of DSA people, and they have been discussing how they're dealing with the crisis there. And it's fucking insane. It's like, they literally treat, like, they have this thing, basically a law, in California that completely annihilates the rights of the people who rent out the place, because it gives a power to the property holders to basically evict you at any time, and to put any amount of like any rent whatsoever. If they want to raise it, they can. If they want to lower it, they can. They can. Like, they have this thing in some cities of America called wait, how is it called? The rent control. Rent control is when government has to check when you rent out places. If you're like, if you rent out stuff, they should check whether you have a lot of space available, and you're not allowed to have a lot of space just sitting there. How they do in China, for example. And there are literal cities in China that are just built and nobody touches them because they speculate on the market. So those sort of like anti-speculation laws exist in America, but in California, those things are like, they don't exist. And so speculation on the market is rampant. And and they had some laws that used to like somehow balance it out. For example, if you are a city developer, if you're a development company, urban development, you are obliged by law to build, when you're building luxury apartments, to build some apartments that are in a lower market price so that people would be able to fucking afford it, right? But because of that law, this thing is completely screwed. And because it's far more profitable to build luxury apartments and give it to the Californian millionaires, right?
Yeah.
Then nobody has a place to live in.
Jesus.
Like,
How long
obviously,
until-
there are far more homeless people. There are far more available spaces in, like, I think twice as much available apartments in California than homeless people.
How long
So
until
that's like, yeah.
until Trump extends the border wall around California?
Oh, I don't know, dude. Never, because California is where the crazy Democratic liberals are. This is where the millionaire Democrats are. So those guys literally own the place. Just imagine, there are parts of the California, like cities in California, where 20% of population of a city are literal millionaires.
Fancy that.
And like, like, take for example a city in California called Mountain View. You may have heard of it. This is where Google is.
Hey guys, I'm really sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I gotta head off. So hey, lovely talking to you.
Already?
Yeah, sorry guys, but hey, lovely talking to you. Thanks for having me on, and
Not
I'll
a
see you
problem.
guys later. Okay.
Thanks for
Right.
tuning
Okay,
in.
see you in a
Pacman.
bit.
See you, man.
Later.
So yeah, as I was talking, the Pleasant Mountain View is a city where Google is. Locals fucking hate Google because the city developers only build luxury apartments. Nobody can afford them. Even the software engineers who work at Google cannot afford them. This is the crazy part. Like, I had a friend in Belarus who worked at Google, and he had to rent out a place together with. He had a separate room, but he had to rent it out with 6 different other people because it was that expensive. Just imagine you work at Google, but you rent out the place with 6 co-workers because you can't afford a place to live.
Well,
It's just fucking insane.
Well, take this like what seems to be a
Yeah.
worldwide housing crisis. What's the response to this? I mean, like harsher rent controls? Is it like, do we need to start seizing houses? Is this the point where we form a revolutionary
No,
vanguard, or is there some more peaceful way to
A
deal
lot
with
with that. We can do a lot with.
Well, I
Start
think
a
the
union,
first step is
like-
organizing.
Yeah, organizing. Start a union together with other people who rent out stuff, and start discussing how can you lobby the government to, like, not lobby the government, but to pressure the government to put laws that protect your rights as a worker in the parliament. Like, because what else can you do?
Housing co-ops, please.
Well, yeah, actually, that was something I was going to say. We need to start getting people together in mutual interest and starting to collectively buy buildings. Like, for example, like, you know, if you could get, like, say 50 to 100 residents together, all renters, all people who rent, and then find large properties, like large areas of land, like or large buildings such as apartment blocks and so on, and pull resources to get these functional and of course working. And eventually you can sort of start building up your capital until eventually you can start thinking about why don't we have anarchist or co-ops, even, as you Spoogs said, housing developments, groups of people who organize. Because I was at work the other day, no shit, this is a fully legit story. I'm chatting to a guy who I made a sale to, and I was just shooting the breeze, you know, as you do with a customer. This guy tells me that I asked him, like, you know, he hasn't got NBN in his area, and I asked him how his internet was, why he had so many internet products and how he was running so many products on ADSL. No shit, this guy said that he got together with the other 40 people in his neighborhood, and they all pitched in $1,000 each, and they paid for the development, for the actual, you know, crews to come out and dig the pits and then engineer. They paid for a high-speed fiber internet to be installed by a contractor.
Fucking hell.
They pulled
Holy shit.
resources. They pulled resources as a community
That's amazing.
and purchased that, and now they've all got the fastest internet in Australia. So much so that because they've paid for their own stuff, technically it's their personal property, and so the government can't install NBN in their area unless they give permission, and they've refused it.
Fuck, that needs to happen in more places.
Exactly, but this is what I'm saying. Just a bunch of, I mean, granted they were wealthy middle class, but a bunch of concerned citizens can take action. It's just a matter of getting enough concerned citizens together to make it work.
I agree. And I believe that, what's it called? Renters
Sorry, guys. So I think Eugene and Spoogs, both your audio is making you sound like robots.
Is it better now? I just restarted it.
No, it sounds about the same. Spoogs, unfortunately.
Get to the chopper now! No!
It's going down. This live stream rating by the minute.
Internet.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh God!
We can hear you. You're still robotic.
Wait, is that better?
Yeah, Spoogs, you're better.
Spoogs is back.
Yay.
So if it only costs, so that's,
Is it better?
Yep, there we go.
yeah, that's better.
Okay, I
So
reconnected.
this community buying into having fiber from the node to the home, if that's possible, and we can circumvent the coalition's pile of defecating asses NBN plan, why aren't more people doing this? Why isn't there a mass movement to get this done? Is it just because it
Well,
costs $1,000 a person, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
It's outside the budget.
I mean, to be fair, if it's a larger like area, then you can get more people chipping in, and less, and individuals will have to pay less overall.
Exactly, but it's more to the case of we're at a point where it's like critical organization problems. Like we need enough people to sort of get these sort of like, because if we want to go circumventing the housing crisis, I mean, the only way we're really going to be able to do that is, like we said, we're going to need communal housing,
Co-ops, baby.
housing co-ops for the
Yeah.
reals.
And a great basis for that, because you can't just like say, okay, TK, you now and you're like all of the people around you, you're going to buy a house now. Find money anywhere.
I don't even have 20 cents to my name right now.
Exactly. And
man.
well, I believe that the only valid, like, it's a great thing, and I believe this is the great, like, final solution. Of course, final solution is like basically local government treating the housing as infrastructure and building it up for the, like, basically as for a budget, but like fuck it, it's up to the season means of production. I believe that the way to go now is to start organizing locally and to start creating unions. Basically, a bunch of people in your city who rent out spaces. What you do is you get yourself a union. You start a union yourself. And basically what you do, you start paying like a small percentage of money, like basically, and you start like accumulating some operational budget, and then you start like petitioning government as a union, and then you start do the collective bargaining, you know, like, and all of those stuff, like, and do what unions do, but on the rented property. You understand that? Like in America, they do that, and I think collective bargaining is a great thing to be doing as a as one of the first things to do, because usually apartment buildings belong to one guy. Like one apartment building where you rent out your space, it belongs to the one guy. And a good thing to do is to do collective bargaining, do union work, do political protests and whatnot, and petitioning to the government. Make yourself as public as possible, like. And of course, it's basically a full-time job. What I'm describing, this is because like this is why unions have employees, because that sort of work is basically full-time. But that's what has to be done in many ways. Like starting a union, at least some level of organization, communication to the fellow people who also have to rent out their space. It's very important, and this is what they don't want to do, because in the first world, current situation with the renting is basically neo-feudalism. It's literally feudalism. You get kicked out of your fucking land if you don't pay. What?
No,
you have a house, fun times. Go away.
Years ago, Eugene, you don't understand. It's voluntary, so it's fine.
Exactly. We should organize. Like, I have a better position because it's not as bad here, you know? And my personal situation is different. I'm not renting out, you know? But
you're a landowner?
I know.
What are you, bourgeois?
I'm not. I'm not profiting from the land in any way.
Ooh.
Basically, the place where I live belongs to the family of my wife. They have like 2 apartments, basically. And so that's it.
Turn them into
and they
co-ops.
basically, excuse me?
Turn them into co-ops.
Turn it into a co-op? Dude, it's a 1-room apartment in a shithole of its part of a city. What co-op are you talking about?
No, you're limiting yourself, Eugene. All right, you can like cram 5 people in there, can't you?
Dude, yeah, this is what they did in Soviet Union. I know. No. This is literally the Soviet Union.
There was 5 people crammed in one apartment. It was a hellhole. They were starving, waiting for bread lines. It was a giant gulag.
Oh. If I remember correctly, the policy was that one person could have not more, not less than 33 square meters.
I mean,
or something like that. I think it's 33 square meters. I may be mistaken. I don't really remember. But basically, yeah, people were like Just imagine those giant apartments, the luxury apartments. They basically build artificial walls in there, so that basically each room was each separate, basically living space, and they had a common bathroom, common kitchen, and whatnot. And because of the underdevelopment of this and underfunding and general poverty of the people who lived in such apartments, it was a shithole. It was a stinking fucking shithole. But what I can tell you is that it's far better than living in the street. And there were no homeless people in Soviet Union, first thing. And second thing, with current advancements, we are
Speaking of the fucking bourgeoisie, I've just gotten a parking ticket, motherfucker.
Oh, what?
Really?
Fuck, I hate the cops.
ACAB. ACAB.
What? I hate the cops now. Communist revolution now.
So,
Parking fines are fucking theft.
Pacman, what is
Uncollectible.
a parking ticket?
Yep. A parking ticket.
I just want to park my
Terrible.
car and walk to wherever I need to go. All right, leave me alone.
Yeah,
I say
disgusting.
I don't have that problem 'cause I ride a motorcycle.
I say fuck parking spots. Park in the middle of the damn road. At least it's free.
That's not anarchy. That's just chaos, mate. That's Jesus Christ.
It's just a bit of chaos, my dude.
I don't know why, but for some reason, I live in a regional town. I won't reveal where, so I don't dox myself. But everyone thinks it's just like a row of houses with a pub on each end. So they think, oh yeah, it's a nice quiet street. It's a small town atmosphere. I'll just walk across the street. No, this is a town of 100,000 people. Get off the fucking street. I'm trying to drive through it. Jesus Christ.
It should be legal to run them over, to be honest.
You know who needs
Ah,
to
but they
fucking
need to enforce that law.
fucking cyclists. We're
Oh
celebrating.
my fucking god.
We're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. It's the 120th anniversary of the internal combustion engine. Fucking use one! God damn it!
I got
Or
to
at
do a
least,
big
at least have the
argument.
courtesy to get off the fucking road, mate. I have seen cyclists cycle along main roads with like cars going like 60 k's, only like a meter from them. It's like, what are you doing? There is a bike track right next to you. Use it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
see, I
but they
got
don't
no
give a
problem with
fuck.
cyclists if they stay in that lane. Now, I understand occasionally they need to go out because there might be a squirrel or someone's opening their car door. Fair enough. I'm on a motorcycle. I can give you that room. But for fuck's sake, if you're riding on the road, I have to get near you because I'm going 60 and you're going 30, and you're on the fucking road.
Like,
Jesus Christ, we give you a lane and you don't use it. Yet if we take away the lane, suddenly you start screeching at us from within your lycra-clad bodies. This strange noise of give us
Well, I'm
our
calling
bike lanes, then
I'm
use
calling
them,
it
you
right
bastards.
fucking now. I'm calling it right fucking now. Cyclists don't get gulag. Cyclists get the fucking wall. I'm sorry. It just fucking happens.
I got into a big argument with a mate of mine when we were talking about cyclists and helmets. He was basically coming from a more anarchist perspective in that you got to respect individual liberties. It's their choice if they want to wear a helmet. But my argument was, wear a fucking helmet. Jesus Christ. If you're on a bicycle and you're riding along and a car hits you, you want something on your head to stop it from cracking open. You're a fucking idiot if you don't wear a bicycle helmet when you're riding a bicycle.
You see, Darwinian natural selection. Let the fuckers die. I don't care.
Oh
Jesus.
god.
Now,
Less
argument.
cyclists. Less
I
cyclists.
think-
100 years,
I
100
think you
years
shouldn't-
from the day of the Russian Revolution, today is the first day of the revolution against all cyclists. No
We're
longer
ending it here.
bourgeois.
Look, you see, the rubber on my tires is actually synthetically grown. Because I can't support deforestation. You're wearing lycra, you cunt. Just get out of my way.
All right, talking about the revolution, I have some news from the front lines of the Bolshevik insurrection.
Save us from my rising blood pressure.
Okay, the commander of the Moscow Red Guard, Alexei Vedernikov, his nickname is Sibirak, the Siberian, even in English. He went to the barracks of the 56th Infantry Regiment and demanded that they would give him a squad to storm the post office and the telegraph. Despite the fact that the army has been said to be neutral and at the moment is neutral, 2 regiments just went with them, and so currently they're moving to storm the post office and the telegraph in Moscow. Also, the minister, one of the ministers of the provisional government, he at the moment had released a sort of the crisis, what is to be done in terms to prevent the crisis, and this includes to get the colonel who's in charge of the army at the moment, get the colonel in and listen to what he has to say about the crisis. To stay in the Winter Palace until the head of the government will come back, but he won't. To choose a person who will be dealing with the Bolshevik crisis and find out how many forces are still on the side of the provisional government. Also, 7 minutes ago, the people have stormed the what's this called? The Astoria Hotel, and the rest of the officers who were staying there. Going down hard. The military is switching their side at the moment really fast. We can notice it, and I think the military, because military is not taking a side, individuals take a side. Individuals are joining the battle.
Wasn't the military at that point already suffering from mass desertions?
Yeah, they were.
Thousands of soldiers leaving the front line to go join the Petrograd Soviet, weren't they? Yeah,
the Red Guards, and because at the moment the army itself is sort of taking a neutral side, the individuals were like, no, let's to hell with it, and they're joining the insurrection completely without commands. So this is what has been going down there.
How long did it take? Did it actually take the Bolsheviks to seize power in Petrograd? Was it just a couple of hours marching down the street, or was
if we talk about the insurrection itself, it has been a day or so. It's literally a couple of hours.
I didn't spend any money on it. No, sorry guys.
If we talk about before that, you can say that the Bolsheviks has been working towards it far before the February Revolution, even. Socialists has been doing a lot of work in Russia.
The groundwork being laid down for this kind of revolution probably happened with Karl Marx first coming up with his theories, giving the idea that the working class is more important than they really think. But I guess where I'm coming from is more how long, we're getting live updates. 100 years ago, right now, some guy, the military is saying, no, we're neutral, yet a few of them are about to take a post office, some random post office. How long until...
Not random, the main post office of Moscow.
The Moscow post office, right.
Yeah, main, so infrastructure, basically, taking over the infrastructure.
Yeah. So how long until they stopped seizing government buildings and start administrating from those government buildings?
I think the first things that they have done will be tomorrow. Sort of the first things will be done even today, tonight, because the storming of the Winter Palace is what basically stopped the provisional government and expelled them, and this is what started the work. The problem with the revolution was that at the time a lot of people came on the side of the generals who were rebelling against the new Soviet government. This is what started the civil war, and so we can say that the revolution was in terms of it's really hard to say when something stopped and something started, but I would say that the revolution wasn't over until until the Civil War has finished, technically.
So this Bolshevik
You know?
storming of the Winter Palace is the kickoff to, is the starting point to this long civil war. That they're not two
Yeah.
separate events that happened one after the other. It is the one event.
Sort of, because it has been like one thing led to another, and sort of you have a war, because there was like grand war declaration or something, you know.
Wars
You
of
know what
this
I'm
type usually start the same way. It's wars of this type always start the same way. It's a fuck you, no fuck you, and then a couple of shots go off, and then suddenly it gets bigger. It gets bigger.
Yeah,
Bigger, and it
something
snowballs.
like that.
It doesn't sort of just. No one sort of stood up and said, "Okay, revolution now." It just sort of went from one place to another place. I mean, Lenin was in Switzerland at the time, and he was just like, "Well, shit. Okay, apparently
Not now, it
there's
was
some."
in February.
Yeah, in February.
Yeah,
In
in
February he was in Switzerland, and they throw out the Tsar, and he's just like, "Well, like this shit's kicking off. Should we maybe, I don't know, join in?"
Yeah.
And there was no
I
one
remember
organizing.
at the day of the February Revolution, he was giving a speech to the socialists, to the young socialists in Switzerland, and he told them that we will not be able to go with the revolution. It's your task of your generation to build socialism, blah blah blah. And then the next day there was a revolution, and he was like, "Wait a second, what?
Wait, what?
Once again, please, what? Revolution, you say? Okay, we're going on a train, people. Gets us some tickets. We're going to fucking Petrograd."
Ain't no brakes on the Bolshevik train.
Exactly.
Absolutely no fucking brakes on the Bolshevik train.
Bolshevik.
The Bolshevik train.
And so this is what started it all.
Next stop, workers'
It is really
co-ops. Choo-choo.
Like when we look back, on the history, and we see that, like, wasn't it obvious that after, like, the February Revolution was obvious for everybody? We look in hindsight and say, yeah, that's obvious that they would have like had a revolution there. But at the time, it didn't look like this. At the time, it looked like there is no way this generation is going to build socialism. Like, how? In
wasn't it,
Russia, socialism?
Wasn't according to Marx's works, Russia was the last place he predicted a socialist uprising would occur?
Yeah, but Lenin still wanted to do it. Like, Lenin still saw an opportunity. But at the time right before the February Revolution, he sort of gave up. He said that it's impossible. It's really impossible. The material conditions are not correct at the moment. But he was really wrong.
Well, surely that's just because he was in Switzerland at the time and he wasn't boots on the ground talking to workers in the factories kind of stuff.
There were Bolsheviks there. They were like organizing. They were socialists at the time, and they were doing a lot of work. But he thought that no, revolution is not possible. We're doing organizing, right? We're still working on this, but it's not possible. It won't happen. Conditions for that, and he was mistaken, as you may know.
Well, I guess my question to all three of you is like, when in hindsight we can say, as Eugene said, there was obviously going to be a revolution. I mean, it happened, therefore it was going to happen. But at the time, they didn't know. Like, this is such a strange event. Like, could the Bolsheviks win? Is it going to happen? And then all of a sudden it does. Are we seeing something like that today with the rise of the alt-right and fascism and the popularity of socialism increasing and the dialectic only growing stronger? Are we reaching a point where there could actually be some kind of mass movement that we don't know will happen yet?
Well,
I
can count. Yeah, please, somebody else.
I doubt a mass movement will happen, although I think it is more possible for some sort of, well, if you consider what's happening now, like especially in places like Greece and all that, all those hackers places, insurrection might be more of a thing that might come along than anything else.
Me, at the end of the day, I think it's pretty much a guarantee. It's guaranteed that you know some form of shall we say retribution is coming.
It's coming, Bucko. We're coming for that.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable at this point. As my dad always says, happy people don't revolt, and people are decidedly unhappy around the world right now. I don't think there's any. Will it be this year or next year or whatever? It doesn't matter really. All that's really certain is the fact that it's going to happen in some shape or form at some stage. We know this is going to happen. Like it's a matter of when. It's not so much if, it's when. When will this take place? When will we see the grand revolution start, if there is going to be such a thing? And quite honestly, I think that Australians as a whole are not going to be that enthused by it. I think if we were in Lenin's position, I think we would say the same thing about Australia. Of all the places that it is least likely to take place, here is it. Because Australia is despite all the situation, despite everything that's happening, despite all of the disappointments we have with our government and the decisions it makes, Australia is still like I think it's ranked second in the world as the best countries to live in.
Yeah,
and I think
the happiness is rather high.
Yeah, I think that Batko the Bordigist, his analysis was correct in that, you know, Australia is just so fucking happy that there's no way it's gonna kick off here. But then again, it's one of the cases, do we really want it to kick off here? I mean, honestly, I don't want the revolution to start anywhere else except the United States. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's where I want it to start, because otherwise
we have that giant superpower to worry about.
Yeah.
And their sole purpose in life for the past 100 years has been the prevention of socialism ever occurring.
Drops
That has
bomb.
been
Socialism doesn't work.
Socialism can only, like, a socialist revolution today would only work in America because America can't invade and destabilize itself.
Essentially, yes. That's the sad truth of it. That would be the analysis to end all analyses. America can't invade itself, therefore.
In my opinion, there is a giant possibility of a mass movement. Giant possibility. I'm really positive, like that there will be a grassroots big movement of people talking about socialism, people talking about all of that good stuff, and like waving red flags and whatnot. Like, it will happen, and it is happening now, and it will be growing and growing and growing. The growth won't stop. Like, DSA is the fastest growing party at the moment in America in terms of people who enlist. Like, literally the fastest growing party. And just imagine what will happen in a couple of years. And because the more shit is going down in the world, the more people are looking at radical ideologies to join. And we see this with the rise of fascism worldwide. We see it with the rise of socialism worldwide. And I believe that a good scenario will be that basically the exploitation of the third world may lead to economic crises and to complete failings of capitalism there. But I believe this is not the best thing to count on, right? Because capitalism is really good at hiding exploitation, even from the people who are exploited. And there is a chance that the third world will not rebel. There is a chance of that.
It can't.
Not rebel, and at such a mass they did, like during the Soviet Union times, for example. Because of the lack of support of the giant socialist power who will be like helping them out, for example. Okay, Jake is writing in chat. Do you think it will ever be in the next 20? Do you think it will be in the next 20 years, our lifetime? I live in the US and I have a hard enough time arguing with people talk about the moon landings, yet alone about teaching about socialism. I can understand that, but I believe that if the left has to do some things to talk to the people that you're referring to. Like, the working class needs a lot of platformism, and the left has been really theoretical in mass. I'm talking about like most of the left. Is ivory tower universities, blah blah blah. It sucks, and we should rethink how we do it. Part of it is propaganda. Part of it is the work that we're doing at distant marshlands, and people should also do this in mass everywhere. Like, basically, I remember there was a stream of ContraPoints together with Zexy, and like Muke said that YouTube channels are today's newspapers, and I agree with that, because this is a good way to build up following. But we will see how well, like, this will in what it will result in the future, because it's really hard to discuss it while it is happening now. I think any kind of promotion, any kind of work is good work. Any kind of practice is good practice. And basically, in my opinion, there is a grand chance during our lifetime in the United States there will be a mass democratic socialist movement with people who are completely sick and tired of capitalism, people completely sick and tired of the current political movements. And what we can expect is a giant move to the left. You know, this conspiracy theory that the fascists have, that the political discussion is moving more and more to the left, right?
Mm.
And this is like a cultural Marxist way to go full communism.
Yeah, I think
To make this is what unironically will happen because of how terrible capitalism is treating the workers.
I think what you'll probably see in America, just to try to answer Jake's question from my perspective, is more organization through online means. You'll see that now. Like, it's happening right now with people watching this live stream, with people commenting, asking questions. And like you said, YouTube...
And people organizing, stuff like this, yeah.
Yeah, YouTube has become the new press. People can get information from reliable sources and from very specific sources. You can get socialist news from a socialist. You can get Jason Unruh news from Jason Unruh.
I love how you don't like class Jason Unruh as a socialist. It's like, this guy is just out here. He's just doing his thing.
I don't know. Tanky news from Jason Unruh. I don't know. but essentially, from that, you can start to see organizations forming from organization. Mm-hmm. So you'll have people who, hypothetically, well, for illustrative purposes, you have people who live in a town. They create a Discord talking about, workers of Doozy Blob Town. And they start to say, hey, we've all got the same problem in this town. We're underpaid. But they know this because one guy does a live stream about his work at a factory, and his mates that work over at the pub watch it. And it's all through YouTube. It's all online. But then all these people that are communicating form a union, and they say, hey, we want better pay. And that's what you'll probably see starting now and into a little bit into the future. But this mass movement where it starts happening worldwide will probably be sometime in the next 20 years.
We can expect it. We can expect it if there will be some sort of insurrection anywhere in the first world, especially. Like, if there will be something giant in terms of socialism happening, right? New thing, like a giant fucking thing. It will inspire a lot of things the same way like Rojava inspired a lot of socialists.
Mm.
And like, I believe this is important how an active insurrection really fuels the workers' movements everywhere.
Yeah, just to comment back with what Jake's saying in the chat. You'll try to talk to people you think will be interested, and they will come back and say, "I don't care. I just want to work here." Because he's been saying he's been trying with his family and his peers and whatnot, and isn't getting much success. There is 7 billion people in the world. Not everyone is going to agree exactly with what you think socialism is. You might have a comrade who's like 10 out of 10 means production for the workers, but you'll disagree on how to run the workplace democratically. And I say that because you'll get people like that, and you'll also get people who disagree with you completely, who say private property is the best way moving forward. I just want to make, a good wage to live. But that's where you connect with them. You say, you want a good wage? Well, you know how you can get a good wage? Join a union. You talk to them on a level that they can understand. Because I too have made the mistake of carrying a massive hammer and sickle flag and kicking down the door of my friend's house and being like, "Hey guys, let's talk about politics." When what I should have done was just said to them like, "Hey guys, how do you feel about your workplace? Are you satisfied?" Yeah, exactly. And when you talk to people on the same level in the language that they can understand, you might get you might get a bit more success.
I think the problem is that we're still using that shitty Marxist academic language when we're talking to normal people. It's like they're not. Coal miner Joe doesn't understand what bourgeois means, right? He doesn't know about the labor theory of value. Stop talking to him like that. You got to actually connect them on a normal basis, not. Your surplus value is being extracted by your boss. Like, it's pretentious as fuck. Like, stop doing it. Please.
This is the same problem I have with the with the student liberals, with the student socialists as well. It's the same thing. All of these guys are singing and crying about capitalism, which you could clothe us, that includes us as well, I guess. But on a broader scale, a lot of these kids are university students. They've never worked a fucking day in their lives. Like and I worked at a fast food joint before this, and that was pretty shit. But these kids haven't worked a single job ever, and they sort of think that socialism is just like this glorious alternative, whereas they don't understand what the connotations are. They don't understand the application of it. They don't understand the theory. We had a family function recently, and my dad decided to keep it, tact. He kept his mouth shut, but I went head to head with some of the members of our family, saying that Australia is moving into a service economy, and therefore, trade skills and stuff like that are surplus to requirement. We don't need it. The workers aren't required to do that anymore. I'm thinking, well, what about these miners and factory workers who are going to lose their jobs? Like my dad put it succinctly afterwards. He says, we can't eat a degree. Okay, we can't eat a fucking degree. It doesn't happen.
You can try.
And when it comes down to the Soviet model of socialism in education, it was exactly the same thing that I've been saying for years. If you go to school, you're going to school to get an education. Like the moment you hit high school, you sort of should be looking at. So what kind of career are you looking at? Okay, I'm looking at this. Well, fine. Here you want to be an engineer. Okay, that's cool. Well, instead of sending you to do some generic fucking, standardized test or whatever, which granted is good for your formative years, when you're going into the later stages of education, not even university, even in later stages of high school, they should be like, okay, you want to be an engineer? Okay, we're going to send you to a specialist engineer school where you can become an engineer.
Yeah.
And instead of sitting in the classroom saying X to the Y equals Z, you go to the classroom and you go X to the Y equals Z. Okay, so now we're going to go out onto the factory floor and see why Y does equal Z. And that's important because
that's very important. Soviet education was fucking amazing.
The sole purpose of education.
Please finish. I will then pitch in. Just
The
say
sole purpose of education in the modern world, at least in my view, should be the preparation of a civilian or a citizen to able to find gainful employment. That is it. That should be the primary goal of your education, to achieve gainful employment.
I agree. And oh yeah, please. I'm sorry.
And like, you know, people will say, "Oh, well, what about liberal arts degrees and stuff?" Well, I think that the government itself should find a use for them, especially for record keeping as well. Like these arts degrees that people take, the skills for arts degrees and so on should be folded in. Like for historians, for example, should be folded into administration and record keeping as well, just so they have a practical application for their degree. Unemployment should be eradicated in a socialist society. This is just straight up fact. Anything that's
Straight up.
any person who is not, you know, in the workplace. We talk about surplus labor. Well, what capitalists don't realize, or what they don't think about, is the amount of labor being wasted by people not being utilized. It's just like there's so many smart and brilliant people and educated and skilled people out there who are not being utilized, which they have a lot to contribute. So anyway, that went into a rant, but that's basically the thing we're sort of looking at.
I agree with your point. I'd like to say two things. First, on the Soviet educational system. Early in the stream, I talked about it, and I'd like to add that when Stalin eradicated a lot of reforms that, like during Lenin, they were attempting to do, basically what they retained in many ways is the sort of idea that the education should be connected to labor, and it resulted not only in like amazing engineers, amazing professionals in all sorts of works being educated by the system, but also with a lot of educated people, like the famed like Soviet student. You know, it was like an image of like that's stuck in a popular culture. It was a person who was educated in many fields, who knew exactly what is going down, who was really like who understood how the world operates and how knowledge operates, and was able to be expert in many fields despite the fact that he was specialized. And so I believe that this sort of idea that the education should be specialized for people who want to specialize in something and provide everything for them, and provide them with the ability to try themselves out in the real world, should be a norm in any educational system. And what you said about the liberal arts and all of those things, I believe those things also should play a big role in the socialist society, because I agree with Zizek on this point partially, where he said that the ivory tower of the university, in his opinion, should remain an ivory tower. And he had a very good argument for that. He said that the best and the brightest ideas are born out of this stagnant, silly, disconnected academia. And the more academia is disconnected, the more radical and amazing ideas are created there. This is how socialism was created. This is how all of those things appeared, because of this academia being so disconnected from the real world. And like critical theory was developed in this way. The Frankfurt School and their applications of Nietzschean philosophy to the class relations was developed because of this disconnect. And I believe it should be retained, obviously, but I see the problem that you mentioned, that this disconnect leads to people having no fucking clue what to do with their lives. And we should sort this out. We should understand that eradication of private property does not lead to the eradication of the alienation. And I'm not talking about alienation from the product of the labor, but feeling of alienation from the world itself, when you feel excluded, the exclusion of the individual from the world. And this is what we have been, like, what everyone has been experiencing, like this exclusion from the real world. And it will be happening more and more as the years come by. And so, like, this is a debatable point that I would like to point out, basically.
It's a good thing. I remember reading up a study of Marxist economics regarding automation, and so it's talking about how the more automation we have, Marx viewed it as a good thing, as it removes the necessity of a worker having to perform that function. Now, this is a good idea, and we came into conflict with that is because under the capitalist system, that's unsustainable, because under the capitalist system, people need work to survive, and if they don't have work, then they don't survive. They starve. Like, it sort of warns that how would we go about the practical application of such a system? How would we go about the practical application of getting a system together whereby we have, where we spread the load. So, for example, we know that 9 out of 10 jobs can be automated today. 9 out of 10 in a service economy at least can be automated. Customer service can't be. Customer service can't be, I grant you. But production, all that sort of stuff, a lot of it can be automated. A lot of it can be production line stuff, and innovation and so on as well. R&D would be done. But the thing is, under a centrally organized economy, would it not sort of fall under the thing that perhaps instead of following this idea of perhaps inventing jobs for people, perhaps we take a look at spreading the load over what jobs remain in the market?
Well, you could change what a job essentially is. My this example I'm about to give is like post-revolution, post establishment of planned economy, but essentially, right now, someone has to do a job in order to earn a wage to live in their house, right?
Yeah.
But you could change the nature of their job so that they don't have to earn a wage to live in their house, but their job is some sort of benefit to the community. So I help run a Nerf event in my hometown, right? I don't get paid for it, it's all volunteer. But if this was my job, suddenly I could benefit the community, or you're extrapolating or whatnot, I could earn a wage from it essentially. Not only does organizing people to get out into the fresh air and exercise and shoot toy blasters at one another help the community, but if they all they buy stuff to make blasters, it stimulates the economy. The reason I can't get paid for it now is because there is no business that would want to pay a wage for me to do that. The government wouldn't want to sponsor this because it doesn't look like a job. The nature of this is just volunteer work. But if the goal of making a profit off of organizing this Nerf event is gone, suddenly this could be my day job. And it's the same with Eugene and I running Eastern Marshlands. To do this full time, we would have to rely on Patreon supporters giving us tons of money. And guys, all of our Patreon supporters, thank you so much. And if you do want to support us, we do have a Patreon link in the description.
Please help us.
But
Please let me feed myself.
Please help us, yeah.
Yeah, if we didn't need to work to earn a wage to pay our rent and buy food, we could be doing Eastern Marshlands. We could have a video out every day. We could have a daily podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Because we wouldn't need to earn a wage to live in our house. We would just live in our house. We would just have food. And our job would be the nature of the job would be different, essentially.
Yeah, I would like to say that it is possible to organize the society in this way, especially if we're talking about giving more power to the local communities. Basically, the Soviet system was flawed because the capital was still distributed and the decision concerning capital were made from the top down. And I believe that it is still a good idea to do this thing, but if we give more power to the individual states or individual cities to make their own decisions, especially in the environment of automation, we could see how the city could have made a decision. Okay, we could build another factory, right? Like build some machinery, provide like this amount of jobs, and like extra. Or we could get this money and invest it in a community project that the people want to do. Like, for example, people want to do something and get paid for it. Why don't we invest for that? Especially if there is, for example, let's say, for example, the thing that closest to home, like, for example, Eastern Marshlands. How could an Eastern Marshlands become a full-time job in socialism? For example, me and TK have a job, just as in capitalism. We work and we have more spare time to do this thing. We have it as an established commune. We may even get payments for that, right? For example, if we register ourselves with the government, we could say, okay, we want to take payments for that, and we could run it, and the government would see that the people are interested, and they would fund it this way. They would give, okay, this is the money for this month, for example. We could actually, I'm not really sure about that, but there is a case to be made to run intellectual property stuff for profit in socialism if it is made on communal basis. Maybe you will disagree with me, but I see it like directly won't be. There is no exploitation, right? The profit, the having profits from is not that bad after all, is it? Like.
Well, I think that, and not
Just
to interject here, I think that the whole policy of profit in terms of market socialism is that I don't mind the concept of I don't know, semi-capitalist, if you want to call it that, economy, if it is the workers themselves and the people who are doing the labor that directly benefit from that. So as long as, like, you know, you set maybe like 10% for growth for the business, 10% for surplus employees, like people who aren't contributing directly, like clerks and stuff, and then 80% goes to the workers who produce the product. That should be how it's sort of divvied up. Like at the moment, you've got 80% going to the shareholders and that 10% going to running the business and 10% going to the employees. Of course, that's completely pulled out of my arse, so it's probably 2020, but you get what I mean. The lion's share of the profits goes to the shareholders. That's where our issue is.
And I believe that there is an argument to be made for retaining market relations in, for example, entertainment business, like, because it will work perfectly in socialism without exploitation. Let's say, for example, we have, like, for example, a music band that plays, you know, and they record the music on their computers and whatnot. And they want to earn money from that. And what they say is that, okay, fans can pitch in, right? And they start to earn, they start to take basically labor vouchers. People are spending them, and the government registers how much they got, right? And what happens after that is that what they take a percentage of taxes from this that will be spent on development of the community, development of the economy in general, right? It is taxable, and the taxes are like, again, democratically controlled by the community. Like, this is the thing that Cockshott was talking about. It's really interesting thing. We will discuss it on Sunday. We'll be discussing the book Towards Socialism. Basically, and the rest of the, for example, 20% goes to the taxes, right? And the rest, 80%, is separated equally among the people who are registered to be the part of the commune, of the cooperative. You see what I mean? For example, there are 4 members of the band, and they have some sort of Patreon thing, right? And they are registered with the government as a cooperative, 4 members of the cooperative that does this and that does music, right? People pitch in, and the government will be like, okay, this is how much you earned. And this income is... like they tax it and they spread the rest 80% among the 4 members of the cooperative.
I think
like it's a valid thing because there is no exploitation here. Let me quickly finish. There is no possibility for exploitation here because you are paid equal amount compared to other compared to all the people in the cooperative based on. Because government just separates the money equally into equal parts and send it to every member of the cooperative.
Yeah, I think to remember
You see what I
is
mean?
there's a big difference between having to work to earn a wage that isn't
Mhm.
what you're fully worth, and then having to give all of that wage away to buy food, to rent a house, to pay for gas and electricity,
Yeah.
as opposed to being rewarded for doing some sort of task and then doing whatever you want with what you're rewarded with, whether that be money or a chair you built in the cooperatively owned factory, or having your fans support you back because they listened and liked your music. To take your example of these 4 people in a band, in a cooperative.
Well, I understand. Yeah, I agree. So can you reiterate your point? So what's the point you're trying to make?
It's see, currently, right,
Mhm.
if I work at, say, McDonald's, I'll get paid for as an example, $100, right? Immediately, 50 of that dollars goes to rent, and then
Yeah.
another 20, so that's now $70. $20 goes to food because I need to
Mhm.
eat, and then another 20, right, goes to electricity so I can switch my lights on. So now all of a sudden I only have $10 left. So why am I even receiving this $100 when McDonald's should just be, instead of paying me, they should just be putting that money into my landlord? Because I don't see
Yeah.
that money. I see it, well, I see that money, but I see it going from out of the ATM into my hand and then into the hands of my landlord.
You don't really see
And
it
yeah.
as yours. You see
Yeah,
it as
It's a rent
it's
money.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's my landlord's money. So I don't feel rewarded. I don't feel like I'm valued at work because I earn all of this money and then only get to do with what I want with just this tiny little leftover bit that can barely cover a surprise expense that comes up. Like, I don't know, I accidentally break one of my windows. I can't get it fixed because all I have left is this measly little $10. Yet,
Mm-hmm.
in a socialist planned economy, if I work to earn $100, I get to decide what to do with that $100. Because then I feel rewarded, as opposed to earning a wage.
Yeah, but that still doesn't eliminate. Of course, this is obvious, but it still doesn't eliminate the fact that you're still forced to, like. Of course, you're provided with food um, and place to live, so you're no longer restricted um, from being alive. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
we get rid of that part, but the other part is you still are required to put in labor for the like efforts of the community in general to be able to have access to other goods and services, right? This is what the labor voucher is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we still leave some to be decided. Like you still have to work to have access to some things. Of course, it's not as bad as in capitalism, where if you don't have a job, you're screwed. But I believe that if we think about, like, if you think about, what if you don't like this job? Like, what if you have your own thing that you want to do, for example, music, and you want to do your music in the way you want without any, like, how do I say it? Without any petition from a higher power, like, for example, like, oh, you have to perform this music or that music at this particular event or that particular event. You want to do your own creative things that are not that to them using the planned system. I'm talking about this particular stuff, you know? With the creative work. The creative work, I believe monitoring it will be devastating. It'll be devastating to attempt to do planned economy in there, because how can you plan such things as paintings? How can you plan such things as like music or stuff like this? It's really impossible. It's possible, but it completely devastates the ways we like do those things.
So have I made
You
the
know?
mistake of lumping together too many different types of jobs?
No. I believe that you didn't make a mistake, but I'm trying to make here an argument that what you're saying must be done. You know, person must be able to sustain themselves. People should be able to maintain themselves without a job. Even if you don't have a job, you still should be able to have access to food and shelter. This is obvious, right?
Well, yeah.
To anyone
According to
from
their,
a socialist.
from each according
What did you
to
say?
their need. That's
Yeah,
that basic tenet, yeah.
agree. But I'm trying to also say, like, how about what about jobs that where you don't earn, that don't exist without, like, how do I say it? That currently, in this particular moment, can only operate on the market basis.
So these
Like, you can, like, creative work can only at the moment operate on the market basis.
so you have these like bullshit jobs that only exist just so that someone can have a job.
No. I'm talking about creative work. Creative work, I don't see it being able to perform that well in a planned economy system.
Right.
Of course, creativity will be given more attention in the socialist environment because of the decreasing of the work hours, right? You will have more hours to perform creative work, leisure time, and whatnot, right?
Well, yeah. Well,
But
you've got like
the other thing, how about earning money? If I want to be in a band, and I believe this is what I am, like, suited for the best, how about I do it, you know?
Well, see, if you and I were in this planned out society, right?
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind putting my hand up and saying, "Look, the streets have to be swept. I don't mind sweeping them. I'll stand up." But but they only need one person to do it. So then you, Eugene, don't have to. That's where you
Yeah.
can then focus on your the Eugene Degent Metalhead project, whatever you're gonna call your first album.
Yeah.
Because
So
I've
you're
already
saying about leaving unemployment, basically, by not unemployment, but basically allowing people not having jobs if there are no jobs and providing them with everything.
well in this you know, I'm speaking very like fantastically, you know, in this socialist utopia, you, Eugene, would have a house to live in, food to eat, a heater to keep you warm, or an air conditioner to keep you cool, and I would have the same, but it wouldn't just be you and me. There'd be hundreds of thousands of people, right?
Okay.
And of course, there would only be, say, tens of thousands of jobs that need to be done. But there's people that want to work. There's people that want to help the people around them, such as myself. As I just said, I wouldn't mind sweeping these streets because, damn it, someone's got to do it. But instead of all of these hundreds of thousands of people without a job suddenly going homeless on the street, they have time to focus on that novel they were writing, that band they were trying to start, that movie they were trying to make.
So what are you implying is that, and what about people who choose to work? Are they getting more, like they're getting more, how is it, the labor vouchers? They're getting labor vouchers for that?
Most likely. Well,
And
like
the problem with that, the problem with what you're saying is that what I see as a problem, maybe I'm just mistaken. Basically, if you have such a system as you described that relies on the people choosing to work and getting more from that, like basically, either in this system that you described, people will choose not to work, and a lot of people, far more people, will choose not to work because there is no, why would they if they already have everything? Or they will see that, oh, if I work, I will have access to more stuff, and I need stuff, right? And so people will still be somehow pressured into having jobs.
Yeah, that's
See what I mean?
That's the sort of roadblock I get to as well. Is trying to convince like non-socialists is like, how do we incentivize people to choose to work? But I think my counter to that is, dare I say it, human nature, because here we go.
Nice.
So people are made up of the human nature is dependent on the environment around them. Right? Did I say that right? I'm sorry. It's very late for me.
Yeah. It's
correct. So when someone grows up in a society where it's built into them that if you don't have money in your bank account, you're going to end up on the street and die. So naturally, they want to get as much money as possible, and they take it and they hang on to it, and they try to take other people's money. But if they grew up in an environment where they knew that they would always have a house over their head, they would always have food to eat, suddenly they realize, oh, I don't need to hoard this food. I don't need to hoard all of this land. And then they start to feel like, well, what about the people who, someone who, say, is in a wheelchair who can't leave their house? Maybe I could help them. You know, there's that want. They naturally want to help others because they know that others can't help themselves. And they don't want a reward. They don't want to be paid for it because they know they don't need to be paid to then pay rent to live in their house because they know that they have a house. And
I mean, I suppose you could say that. I don't want to cut you off. Sorry, but it's like, I know it sounds horrible, but it feels a bit naive. The kind of people who would be in the position to do this are the capitalists we're engaged against right now. Believing them capable of any sort of charity is stretching it a bit, in my opinion. But I know not that doesn't invalidate your point in any way. No, it's sort of like it's just sort of a more of a sort of, I guess, my nihilist positivist sensibility is kicking in, that I don't necessarily believe that we're going to get the best interests of people represented by them, if that makes sense. What's that, Dad? Sorry, just give me a second.
Okay.
Understandable.
Yeah, I do admit, like, my thinking needs a little more nuance because it's very idealistic.
Well, yeah, but like again, if we look at the system that German Democratic Republic had, where you literally didn't need to work, and you would still not be fired from the job, and you will still get some basic income, basically, and because you could literally like be employed in a factory and never visit it and still get money for it, right? You couldn't be fired in any way whatsoever, whatever you fucking do, except when you like literally endanger the lives of the people, or like you come drunk to the work and you like almost cut your hand off, you will be fired. But if you don't visit the work, if you don't endanger anyone, you'll still get paid. And I think 0.1% of the employed people never worked. Basically, they chose not to work, and they still had a place to live. They still had food on the table. They still had heat and electricity. And so I see this will happen. People won't, like, I think it's a good thing. The economy won't crumble if we guarantee people their things. We can agree on that. But I think still that, yeah?
If anything, it would make them want to work more, as they might want to, since society is now caring for them, they might want to put that back in as sort of a I owe you sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this would
they naturally
this
want
would
to
take
give
you-
back and pay it forward.
Yeah, you naturally
Yeah,
want
brother,
to give back,
I-
and I agree with that.
The ground says fuck you.
I personally, my first act in this new pan-socialist republic would be to buy Spoogs a new microphone.
Yeah, you've gone
He
all
has a
robotic
nice
again.
mic. You're going very robotic.
No, it's my fucking internet. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just to add on to that, imagine a McDonald's, right, that didn't
Uh-huh.
need to make a profit. Its only motive was to feed people, right?
yeah.
This is, you know, I'm talking like in the realms of the realms of make believe now, but now that it can it doesn't need to make a profit, and all the workers don't need to earn a wage to survive. They're just working there. Suddenly, you have tens of thousands of people, right? That can fill the slot of 10 jobs. Suddenly, people are working half an hour a week, but people can still get their Big Mac. And all
Which
it's
is what I've been advocating
I
for
need that Big
forever.
Mac.
Spread the load, man. Spread the
yeah,
load.
exactly. All that's changed is this profit motive or profit barrier, if you will, is gone. And McDonald's then can say, "Oh, technically, you know, when they do have to make a profit, it's like we're struggling to fill these 10 jobs because we can barely hire 8 people." But you change the economy around it, and suddenly they say, "Well, we could hire, say, 100 people to fill these jobs." And now suddenly people are working half an hour a week, but these people aren't out on the street because, you know, this is getting very circular, but they have a house to live in, they have food to eat.
Yeah, I believe it is possible, and it will work. But also, I believe that there are things like, oh wait a second, I've lost my train of thought. Basically, there will be people that will see themselves doing some sort of work that will not be directly contributing back to the society. That's what I want to say. Basically, as I said as an example, creative work. For example, artists and other people who really want to do what they want because they have creative incentive for that. But compared to other sorts of work, for example, like making Big Macs because it's fun for half an hour a week, you know?
Like
That's the thing that you can do. It's fun, right?
yeah, I was talking
But
to
like, yeah.
to a friend of mine about this. What's it called? Welcome to Night Vale. It's
Yes.
a really good it's a really good podcast that's gone on for like almost about just over 100 episodes or something now.
Yeah, it's
And
years, dude.
yeah. Imagine if the people on that didn't have to work a day job in order to support themselves to make Welcome to Night Vale. Imagine if they didn't
Well,
have
they
to
don't
make
know.
Yeah, imagine if they didn't have to make a profit off of making Welcome to Night Vale. Suddenly they could spend all their time on it. They could then refine it. They could then make more of it because they'd have all this time to do it. And suddenly they're giving back to the community and society by giving us this great podcast series. This well, it's not really a podcast, a radio show. They'd be giving back to society through this radio show. So
yeah, but
people...
I exactly agree with you. But the problem is that this sort of labor cannot be accounted for. This labor cannot be calculated. You could attempt to calculate it by the amount of people who consumed it, but I'm not really sure whether we will have enough resources to dedicate it to people who have like just giant popularity. Yeah, and it's still market based. This is still market based.
See, that's where it starts to break down, because the way people impact society in this way is very, very subtle.
Yeah.
Very unnoticeable when you try to look at it, and very untrackable, especially in today's world of the series of tubes that wrap around the world to connect us all. The thing to remember though is there are ways to you can look at view counts. You can look at Patreon supporters. You could track the amount of people sending, I don't know, labor credits to Welcome to Night Vale. You could the amount of
like
messages
my
people
example, like my
subscriber
idea
count.
for that. My idea for that, because we are talking about the society with no money, and so money is not changing hands. It's impossible. What people could do, like for example, like my idea is that people who want to do creative labor only, they want to go full time in that or part time. Maybe, for example, I work in McDonald's for like half of my week, and the other week I want to dedicate to music or art or whatever. Right? What I do is that I establish some sort of like I go to the government, to like my local Soviet, and say, "What up? I want to do art and make money for it." And they're saying, "Okay, here is your account. You can take payments on this thing, right? And it will be going directly to us, and we will be able to see what sort of operations you're doing." And you describe what sort of work you're doing, like what do you want to do. And they're like, "Okay, here you go. You fill in the form. You're allowed. Everyone is allowed. It's not that they make a decision, active decision to agree or disagree with you, you know. They say, okay, we agree you will be able to do it, because by basically by volunteering to do creative work, you are creating some sort of how do I say it, you are still creating value, right? But this value, the amount of value is to be determined, and this is how we go to how the value is determined. You establish some sort of almost like Patreon, or basically a PayPal, right? And you decide how to run it. And either people can just donate your money randomly, or they... Excuse me? Oh, Pacman's back. Okay. So basically, you are allowed to take payments for that, and to provide people with your music or your art, and you give it to them, right? And they basically pay to you. They basically pay to the government to get your stuff. And in exchange for that, the government taxes this income and gives the cooperative the rest that is left over. And basically, you can work half of the time in McDonald's or in a factory or whatever. You work there, and that's part of the money that you get, part of the income that you get is from your other thing that you're doing, right? And as the time goes by, moving to the full communism, post-scarcity, people who are able to take on this as the main job will increase. And the people who will need the work that is needed to put in will keep decreasing, and the people will be choosing to go full creative work full time. And then suddenly, bam, we don't need to have any productive labor anymore. And people during the socialist period, like lower stage of communism, are still able to earn full-time living using the creative work. And by the time the post-scarcity has arrived, we don't need to do any productive labor anymore. And
So,
this sort of
sorry to
this
cut
sort
this,
of creative and productive
sorry to
just
cut
disappears.
this discussion short. We have the man, the legend, Ego Sum Jeffin watching and is in the chat room, and he just asked, "Can I join the hangout?"
Only if he actually
sure.
talks this
If you
time.
use
It doesn't be a
mic.
little bitch.
If you use a mic, then fuck it. Let's come. Let's go. Let's fucking get it started, dude. Are you going to use your mic?
All right.
This shows in the chat.
Oh,
So yeah, this is
how do
my
I get him
idea.
the- Okay, I'm very sorry. I'm not very technically minded with Google Hangouts. How do I get him the link without
I can do
accidentally
it.
showing it to the world?
Easily. You just DM it on Discord.
If you have him on Discord, that is.
I don't have him on Discord.
YouTube Messenger.
Pretty
There is
sure.
such thing as YouTube Messenger. It's very elusive
Fuck it.
when it exists.
Fuck it. No. Let me just. Ego, are you on our Discord channel? You should be.
Wait, no, I got an
Get in the
idea.
Discord, or yeah.
You can create a link, right? Send
Mhm.
it to him. Once he's in, you can there's like in the settings, there's an option to turn off link sharing. So once he's joined, you turn off the link sharing, so the link becomes dead.
Oh no! It's like okay, just no. It's really complicated. Whatever. Okay, let me just put the Discord link in the chat. I think you're not on our Discord, and people who want to join, you can join as well. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed. Wait a second. Can you, TK? Can you link the invite to our server?
I'm trying to get it to. I'm trying to get it to.
You can create a new invite. Create a new invite, right? And put it in the chat because you can put links because you're an admin.
I want to get it to Ego directly. Hold on.
Yeah, well, if he joins Discord, then
Ego is here. He's here. He's on Discord. I can see him. Okay, and then I'll just link the invite to the stream. I can't? Can I? Can I? Oh, yeah, I can send mine that you sent to me, right? Give me just a quick second. I'll just link it to him. And Ego will be here in a second.
Hold on. Okay, I got him on Discord. Okay. So, Ego, if you're...
Okay, I already... I've sent them the link. Yo, Ego, you can go on the link and you can join the discussion. If you will be using a mic, and I hope you will.
You better.
Okay, so how about the thing...
Yeah.
Did you remember what I just... I've just explained how I think... okay, Ego Jefferson is in here. What up? Hello? Can you hear us?
He just went fucking...
He muted himself. Are you going to talk?
Guys, it's okay. He's probably just working out his audio stuff.
Yeah, give him a minute.
Okay. While we are, let me have a short break. I want to take go to the bathroom for just a quick second. I'll be right back. Okay.
All right.
So while you're gone,
I'll be back soon.
While you're gone, for those that don't know, last stream as we were having a Catalan independence party, Batco was on talking about Ego Sum Jeffem, and then Ego was on the chat, and then Batco went absolutely crazy. It's telling, as in he was telling us the story, this fantastical story of, from his point of view, about Ego and what he does on Discord and whatnot. And Batco was doing a nuclear hot take because of this. But at the time, Ego wouldn't talk for some reason, so he didn't get a chance to have his say. So now, welcome, Ego Sum Jeffem. Tell us your side of the story with what's going on with Batco's crusade against you, I guess.
He's still on mute. Oh, you cunt. Come on. Get your shit
I gave,
working. I know
I ad-libbed that whole intro for it.
Come on, I know audio equipment is cursed, but like you can get it working. Come on, you can do it.
The radio silence is just killing me right now.
We're just waiting in anticipation to hear him audible words coming out of his face hole. Come on.
Okay.
He's back on. Fuck. Oh, he left. Oh, rip in peace.
Yes, only Bro 555 Ego Sum Jeffem has been purged. No, he's back. Okay, Ego.
He's back.
I'm gonna have to step in here and say you've got one chance. If your mic's working, please let us hear your voice. Say hello.
We'll give you two. Oh no, he's left. Fuck.
All right. This is the second
they-
time this has happened.
I think
We tried.
We tried. We gave it a
We
best shot.
tried to give. Yeah, we tried to give Ego a chance, a platform, on the live stream, to talk twice now, and he hasn't. Sorry,
What
and he
a
said
cunt.
in the chat, "Sorry, Mike ain't working."
Oh,
Fair
fuck
enough.
off. It happened last time. I have high doubts that hold on. Don't computers these days have inbuilt mics? Like, unless you're using like a 90s computer or some shit. They have inbuilt
Computers,
mics.
Phones, your regular set of headphones you get with a phone
Apple and
nowadays has a
shit
mic
have
on it.
mics.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't sound that great, but at least it's a fucking microphone. So there's no real excuse. Unless Ego some Jeffem has got some hacker's audio set up that he really wants to use. But I have high doubts.
Well, okay. Look, we have been going for
2 hours now.
2 hours 25 minutes. So for those watching now, and for the guests, thank you all for being here on the first live stream to go over 2 hours.
Yay.
Well done to us. I have to admit, I didn't realize I'd be able to go this long.
Time flies.
Yeah.
That's just
But,
the warm up. 8 hours. Come on.
8 hours. Jesus Christ, man! What are you, insane? Good God, man.
Has to happen. Oh God.
But yeah, so I guess that's the phrase of the day. 100 days, 100 years to the day that the Russian Revolution occurred. But Spoogs, from your sort of stonerist point of view, would you say that the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia was ultimately good for all of the left side of politics, or would you have preferred a more?
I can't
Yeah, go
deny
ahead.
that it was important. It was very fucking important. All right. And it was the first real successful implementation of Marx's ideas. So I do think it has a very special place in history. I think what it really comes down to is was the system implemented good? And to some degrees it was. By 1979, I believe, like only 5% of the population were unemployed, and the rest of them were working or studying full time. It definitely improved living standards a fuck ton. It industrialized everything really quickly. So I think in many regards it was good, but in many regards it had some very shitty elements. Although I'd say as a whole it was quite good for Russia in total. I mean, much fucking better than neo-feudalistic piece of crap Russia that they had before. But I think they could have done better. I think they could have given more democratic control to the workers. I think the state needed to actually start, like, at least by the fucking 80s, should have started getting smaller.
So this centralized control over the means of production, would you say that they should have handed over the means of production to the workers?
They should have done it. Like, I'm not saying that they should have done it straight away. That might have not been good, but they should have been at least slowly progressing and getting more and more workers' control. I mean, like, that's my main issue with it, to be fair. Like, just not enough workers' ownership of the means of production. And also cops. Fuck cops.
To be quite frank, I think my only issue with the Soviet Union's management was the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1968. Or 1966. Excuse me. No, 1963. Excuse me. What am I? Memory blank. But I got reading up on that as a positivist. I got the biggest case of blue balls, and I'm fucking pissed
Because we got so close.
We got so fucking
close.
close. I mean, the Apollo program was underway. I mean, we had space travel under development. All we needed was one good global genocide, and wham! We light the signal fire for our alien liberators. But no. in all seriousness, the dolphins take over the planet and it's a better place. But in all seriousness, Soviet Union overall, a really, really good thing, great thing to have existed. But like I say about the United States of all countries, which is a bit, topical. It's a simple matter of the greatest fucking idea anyone ever had. Because you had the United States in the 1770s, and for its time, at that point, it was a monarchless government with habeas corpus, with suffrage for a larger proportion than normal. Yes, they still own slaves, but for the time, this was a radical experiment in the freedom of the common man. Even if it was hierarchical and slave owning and shit, for the time when in the current material conditions, it was a radical idea. It was a great idea. The Soviet Union, same thing. For its time and for its material conditions, the most radical and emancipation of the working man that's ever existed. Like, in both cases, the United States and the Soviet Union, really great, really fantastic ideas fucked up by human incompetence. And I think that what makes socialism such an important thing is that as humanity develops, so too does socialism. And the more we technologically advance, the more we evolve as a social species, the more we push forward. I've noticed this, and I'm sure many of us have, the closer we've drifted to socialism, the closer we've come to achieving that goal. And so eventually, Star Trek style, fully automated luxury gay space communism is in our future. How long away? I'm not sure. Probably 1,000 years if we make it that long. But at the end of the day, we've got an aiming point and we're going for it, and that's what matters. And the revolution is still alive with us today. Let's be honest. As much crap as we give it, in the West at least, social democracy like Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn will be the first baby steps we take. But we need to take these sorts of steps, and their very existence proves that the left is alive and we're making a comeback. And so hopefully, eventually, the world will become a better place. And that's what I think the biggest legacy of the revolution is.
So if this legacy, the right idea given to the wrong people, or applied in the wrong way, is what is the end point to your spiel. How do we apply that moving forward? How do we apply the right kind of tactics to, say, a movement in Australia or America?
Socialism. I know where you're going with that. Socialism was co-opted by a tyrant, and beyond that was a runaway bureaucracy. I mean, we tried to eliminate the class system, and what ended up happening was the bureaucrats became a class of their own. The state became a class. And I think there's that danger where we've got to balance ourselves. Like, we know that there's always, as much as we hate to admit it, as much as Paul keeps yapping on about it, there's always going to be a certain hierarchy to things. It just matters whether that hierarchy is invested as a matter of trust from the people or is enforced by an iron will. Now, we have been given this Western democracy, which is false choice. We're given two parties which are pretty much identical. One has progressive policies, one has conservative policies, but ultimately they're close to the middle. And then you have the far right and the far left. Now, we in the left think that we in the left realistically are going to have to meet somewhere in the middle between the centrist left and the radical left. We're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle, and that's going to be the model of socialism moving forward. Now, tankies call this revisionism, anarchists call this statism. What I call it is pragmatism. We need to get a system that works, and we need to refine that system and build on it. And the only way we're going to be able to, short of violent revolution, which despite what a lot of people say is going to be what we want, we've seen what revolutions cause. They cause civil wars. And the human cost of that is just something I don't want to think about, something that we should avoid if possible. So we need to, as the left needs to take a conscious step to move forward and take on the big challenges in the most peaceful but the most forceful way. I know that sounds contradictory, but really we need to assert our position from strength and we need to do it through what the general public would consider a legitimate mean, whether that be democracy or something else. But as Rosa Luxemburg said, we must win what we can via reform and seize what we can't. And that's basically it. So Rosa all the way.
Okay, people, I'm back. Did Ego left?
He
He
bailed.
kept joining and rejoining, but he eventually just bailed and he hasn't come back.
Yeah, from
He
what
said
I
his
see on
mic wasn't
Twitter,
working.
he went to Batco to leave comments saying that Lenin would agree with him that anarchists are actually fascists.
Oh, XDDD.
Oh. Well, I know.
Also,
I
are
tried-
you discussing
yeah,
the failures of Soviet Union at the moment?
We would-
I guess we
Soviet Union
were
failed to do?
We were
talking
wrapping
about
up,
the
I guess.
future.
Excuse me, I
Like,
couldn't get you
how
both
could we
speaking at the same
take
time.
how could we take the historical examples of what happened 100 years ago to the day and apply it to the movements that we are seeing cropping up now, and seeing how it can be applied to the future, essentially?
Right.
So what would you have to say about that, Eugene?
Well, at the moment, I have in my hand a list of names in a little booklet, which are the people who were born and lived in Belarusian city of Borisov, who have been repressed by the government during the Stalin era.
Alrighty, sorry, just
And
to
those
chime
are-
in here before we go any further. Look,
Yeah.
guys, it's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'll be on the standard edition, well, the standard Aussie Hours edition next week. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting, guys, but I'm heading out, all right?
Thank you for
Okay,
coming.
no problem.
Positives.
Thank you for having Positives. It was fun.
Hope to see you next week. Thanks for coming. Catch you later, man.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Sorry,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
you were saying, Eugene?
All right, yeah. And so this is the list of, in particular, Jews who have been repressed by the Soviet government who lived in Borisov. When I was in Borisov as like just traveling around Belarus, going on like just like going around the occasionally I go on like little tours that's organized by our local Jewish community as like a part of like basically a project for getting to know Jewish heritage of Belarus, you know. And as part of it, we discussed the Soviet period. And there was this man whose name was Harik Isaac Davidovich, and he was a poet. He was a communist, and he was a very important political leader of the city during the revolution. And it was very interesting that on 11th of September 1937, he was a very important Yiddish poet, and he was one of the most important Yiddish poets who lived in Belarus. And he was a communist. I think he worked in the Soviets. I think at one point he was a leader of Borisov Soviet, and basically on 11th of September 1937, he was arrested by the NKVD, and he was charged with like working against the government with something like basically he was accused of being part of the Trotskyist terrorist scheme against the Soviet government, counter-revolutionary work, right? And then he had a trial in Russia, in Minsk, in the current KGB building. There was a trial that lasted for 15 minutes, and on the 29th of October, he was shot and he was killed. And there is a giant list of people who have been like you know, when they talk about Stalin's repressions, what I often hear is the party officials, right, who have been like purging the party. But here I have, like, for example, Matlin Leib Grishevich, born in 1905 in Borisov, who worked as storage, like how it's called, the storage worker in a factory called the Proletarian Hammer. And he was arrested in 1937, and he disappeared after that. Or like a military person, Rahilson Vladimir Leontievich, born in 1903, who was again charged with counter-revolutionary organizing against the revolution, and he was also disappeared. And all of those people, there is a giant list of like random people, like workers at local canteens and like doctors, cashier. There is this cashier who, oh, this is just an amazing thing. He was born in Borisov. He lived in Leningrad. His name is Rosenzweig Benjamin Davidovich, and he worked as a cashier in a shop in Leningrad. In the 23rd of November 1937, he was charged with. He was accused of being a spy, and he was shot on the 20th of December without any trial whatsoever. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the purging of the political party? Like, what about those people? You know? And because when they talk about Stalin's repressions, I often hear, when, like, for example, the anti-Soviet propaganda who has been, they killed the kulaks and they destroyed them. Like, okay, the kulaks were property holders. They were capitalists. It's a different thing. It was literally seizing the land, and we were talking about completely different. Like, it's not the same as like purging the party. Maybe there was a secret plot against Stalin, right? Maybe like Trotsky was plotting to kill him. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Kirov was killed on the orders of Trotsky, despite the fact that but Trotsky wasn't didn't have any power whatsoever by that time, you know? Maybe it's all correct. Just maybe. What does those random cashiers have to do with the fucking being Polish spies and whatnot? What about those people? Mass incarceration, mass like shooting people without trials and whatnot, you know?
So focusing on the real issues.
Yeah, like when I accuse Stalin of being a fucking murderer and a psychopath, I'm not accusing him of purging the party. Like, that's bad enough, but that's like, it's debatable. We have no fucking knowledge of that. But I'm talking about peasants and cashiers and workers in the factories who have been part of a secret plot against Soviet Union. What? Have been part of the counter-revolutionary organizations while being a cashier in a fucking shop. What? Are you serious about that? Shot without a trial? And the reasons for that are the same reasons why the the party purges and repressions were happening, all of that stuff, the suppression of the opposition inside of the party. It's because of the nature of how the Soviet Union was structured. Because of the lack of workers' democracy, because of the lack of like any kind of democracy whatsoever, to be honest, despite if we exclude the inner party democracy. And what I see now, like, this is more a rant about the current left. All I see now are basically two giant like types of the leftists. One type is ivory tower champagne socialists. The third one, obviously, is how do I say it? Liberals who, like, that we have talked about, who claim to be socialists, who have nothing to do with the... No, Lapas will be later. People have nothing to do with socialist movement whatsoever. And the third is Lapas. The Lapas on the internet who like to dress up in different nice clothes, have a nice flag behind their back, and not in a fun, ironic way like you do, for example, TK, on your Nerf events, but literally, yay, let's put propaganda poster on my... I'm not saying, like, maybe a lot of people who are listening to me right now do that, but like, it's not an attack on you personally. I'm more ranting about the trend. Putting a nice propaganda poster on your avatar, have a nickname something like Combat Liberalism, and go around shouting people who want to support Rojava.
So,
you know?
So would you say, like,
leftism.
So like just LARPing, just dressing up like a Bolshevik from the revolution isn't enough. You also need to take the socialist theories of, say, unionizing a workplace and applying that to the real world, actually getting
Not
out
only
there.
that, I'm more
and unionizing.
I'm more irritated with the unconditional support for like past revolutions and whatnot. Like, what the fuck? Like, are you serious about that? Are you just going to like say, nah, it wasn't a lot of people who were killed. Nah, it wasn't that. Like, yeah, whatever. It's
So actually understanding the history behind
yeah.
these.
Actually,
events.
go ahead and learn about this thing, because I'm like one of the biggest obstacle for me as a person who lived in Soviet, who lives in a post-Soviet republic, was to go ahead and when I was like radicalizing, is to combat misconceptions I had about Soviet Union, to try to understand that, like, basically what Soviet Union for me and for people like I am is like normal 20-somethings who live in post-Soviet bloc era. The word Soviet today for us means stagnant. It means traditional. It means bureaucratic. This is what associations people have with that era, and it's not groundless. And I don't think we need to blame a couple of people at the top for that. It was silly Khrushchev who screwed it over. We were so nice before that. Stalin was so amazing. Like, no, there were literal political crimes that were happening there. And the worst thing is that people had no say over that. Like, at the back of this book that I have in my hand that I've been talking about, there is a letter that was written to Tovarish Mikhail Ilyanovich Kalinin by Shapiro Sofia Pavlovna, who lived in Leningrad. And she wrote to Kalinin saying that I've spent 10 months writing letters to government officials, and I haven't had any response whatsoever. And her husband, Shapiro Max Ilyich, has been arrested on the 29th of October, and he was arrested, and she at the time was in the hospital with some terrible illness, right? And she's now half disabled, basically. And they have literally taken all the money that they had and all the property that they had. So that is she didn't have access to her flat, her apartment. She didn't have access to her money. All of that was taken, and she has been living basically on the goodwill of the neighbors, of the people who knew her. And basically she has been writing to those people, and she basically cannot cope with all of her property being seized and her illness and to her 2 kids that she had, right? Excuse me? Want to say something?
Yeah, so we're almost at about 2 hours and 50 minutes, and we haven't heard from Spoogs yet. So if you could give us a last
just quickly
little word.
finish.
Yep.
Yeah. Basically, what she said is that she has 2 kids, a 5-month-old and a 10-month-old kid, and she has no fucking clue what to do. And she says that my husband, I know him for 20 years, and he is an honest man who enlisted in the Red Army. He's a communist, and please tell me what I need to do to make him to free him. And she didn't get any response from none of those people. And my question is that, is the suffering of this woman and like thousands of people all across Soviet Russia, was it worth it? Like, was it worth it to still have the same line, to still talk about the same shit, to blame it on silly revisionism? Like, it's not just that. It's something more than that.
Maybe we have.
And I won't give an answer. What is the solution to that? That's it. That's what I want to say. There is no solution to that. I don't have it.
We may never have it. That's the issue. And this is
Maybe.
just the trade-off.
Talk about
what's your
nuclear
take?
hot takes.
Nuclear hot takes.
Yeah. So
Wait,
yeah,
what?
so Spoogs, like you've got like the last say of the live stream, like and like a slightly different perspective, but yeah, the question still stands for you. Like, what, looking at the events 100 years ago to the day, what lessons can we learn from that? Apply it to today, and then how do we stay on track moving forward to the future?
I think there's very minimal that we can like learn from that because like we don't know. Like as much as we like to pretend that we have figured everything out, or we've used this, material analysis and we know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be it could end up just being a fucking shit show. We could end up completely failing. But in theory, it looked like we weren't. And, basing it off like successful movements and successful movements only, I think can be super damaging because it's now because it ends up of us just replicating it, and then when it doesn't work, we're like, oh, why the fuck didn't this work? It worked 100 years ago in Russia. Why isn't it working today? So I think we need to ditch this mentality of let's just analyze all the successful things. Let's just replicate most of it. Like we need to be able to chuck all that out and start on a clean slate, as it were, as well as also analyzing failures. Like people forget, like failed states are good states. If we can, because they present us an opportunity to learn what happened, and we can analyze them and see, okay, there's some similar stuff happening today, and they did this and that didn't work out. Maybe we should avoid this, or maybe we should change tactics. And we also need to be ready to change everything, like even change fundamentals of how we get there, in terms of like organization or anything like that. So I don't think there's much that we can learn from Soviet Russia, although the parts that we can learn we should take, as well as analyzing all the failures and coming up with solutions. Although even then, I kind of am doubtful that that's even like even worth doing at the moment. Like we're so far away from socialism and even further away from communism. Maybe it's time to stop analyzing so much, well, to a degree, and start acting now to get to a point where we can start actually implementing socialism. And
More direct action.
yeah, more direct action. I think we also need to remember that like we need to I think we need to do more stuff now. But people are like, oh, well, what about rising the mass movement? Like people are can look at us and they go, oh wow, I actually agree with what they're doing, and they're actually doing shit. They're not like telling me I should join this movement over a fucking Discord server. Like they're out doing stuff, and they're out making autonomous zones. They're out fighting fascism, and this example of us actually doing stuff can resonate with people. I'm sorry, this is really rambling as fuck, but
No, it's right.
like that, like I have to use one of our shitty fucking ISIS as an example. I don't think ISIS would have been nearly as big if they weren't actively doing what they were doing in the Middle East. Like their propaganda would have been fucking useless if they weren't actually taking land, seizing tanks, and beheading people or whatever. If like a disgruntled, I don't think that's a word, doesn't matter, Muslim teen who feels alienated is gonna see these people actually doing stuff, and they're gonna want to join them for this cause that he can resonate with. If ISIS weren't doing that, their movement would be much fucking less strong. Not as many members. I think we, as the socialists, the socialist movement needs to kind of do something like that, where we actually need to start doing shit, and then use the propaganda of the deeds sort of stuff. So our propaganda actually has backing to it. Isn't just, oh look, oh you're getting your surplus value extracted or some shit, and look at this like good stuff. It's going to be great. Once we implement it, but if we're not fucking doing anything, like what that looks like to us is well, not to us, to other people is that we're just fucking we're armchairs. We're just sitting there and rambling about this shit.
Would you say now is the time for us, all for yourself, to start writing theory? That we need better theory to put into practice?
I think we need to do praxis to make better theory. Better theory is going to come out of actually, participating and doing practice rather than doing it purely theoretical. But that's just, my take. But like, just like a side note, one of the reasons why liberalism, social democracy, center-right, libertarian sort of crap is why that's more popular is because even though now we would say that they're not doing anything because they're voting and that doesn't do anything, but to the average person, they're not just spewing shit. They participate in what they believe in. And that's why they're more popular than what we are, because like we can point to Rojava, but they're in the Middle East. They're not in fucking... The YPG isn't fighting in America. It isn't fighting in Australia. It isn't fighting in like Canada or whatever you live. Like
Belarus.
Belarus. They're not fighting in Belarus. Like,
what the fuck? They literally proclaimed Belarusian president as the enemy. The anarchists there. They said they shot at the picture of president with AKs.
They're not fighting in Belarus yet.
I'm waiting. Please come.
But like, if we're just saying this shit and we're not backing it up and just pointing to others like, oh, look at them, like, we're not going to actually gain any sort of movement, and we will fucking die in a corner, not having achieved anything since the last revolution or since Rojava, if that fails in any time soon.
So action now. Take action now.
Take action now. We are not being led to a utopia. Like, we are not heading towards socialism. We're not heading towards communism. Those things are not inevitable. We are being led to a fucking shit show at the moment. And it's going to get shittier unless we actually are willing to act. Even if it's just, like, I'm not saying that you have to go around killing Nazis and fucking assassinating your local politician. Well, that's some good praxis. But... But you're not saying you have to do that, but what you should be doing is you should be at least, vandalizing shit, fucking plastering messages, hacking fucking billboard signs. They're no longer like big, large sheets of paper anymore. They have, you can plug in a computer and show some shit on there. Do stuff like that. Do not let the fucking law dictate of what you can and cannot do for this movement. And fucking grab weapons, please. In America, you have this option, right? Because you can buy a grenade launcher for fucking Domino's. But in Australia, here, how are we going to do it? We don't have guns. It's like, use the fucking black market. Like, stop letting the government dictate of what you can or cannot access, you dumb shit.
I'll have to stop you there before you start. Before we get the
illegalism gang. That's amazing.
Yeah, apologies. Someone tried to call me just as you were spitting revolutionary fire. It was good timing.
It actually worked quite well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So let us end the stream by the words of John Reed, if you may. May I?
Yes, go ahead.
This is what John Reed has been writing about this hour 100 years ago. Through the Nevsky Prospect, as always, the trams were moving. The trolleys were moving, and the shops were opened, and the street looked even more calm than yesterday, somehow. Through the night, after the night, the walls have been plastered with new proclamations and writings that are warning against the rebellion. Well, as we know, the rebellion did commence, and at the moment, 100 years ago, the Petrograd Soviet is on, with Trotsky as the leader of it, on on a meeting, and the Lincor, the dawn of liberty, is standing in next to the Petrograd with the guns aimed at Baltic Railway. And so, as the dawn of liberty stands aiming the guns at the basically preparing for the revolution to commence, we have to finish our stream.
Yes.
Truly beautiful words to go out with.
Yes, well done. So
That
yeah,
was
so
a very good stream, people.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and if I talk slowly enough, this live stream will be our first live stream to reach 3 hours, I think.
Ooh.
Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with everything Eastern Marshlands. You can also check out our website, easternmarshlands.com. Next week, we will be having an evening with Comrades, but to the usual around a 1 hour limit.
We'll see. Maybe not.
We'll see. So hope to see you all then, and thank you for joining us.
Now in Discord, I think. Will he go to Discord, or is it too late?
Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. The participants here will be on the Eastern Marshlands Discord, and that I think should be in the description of this. So if you want to come chat to us directly,
No, it isn't. I think you screwed it up a bit. I'm going to put it in the description to the chat, if you may.
Okay, but yes,
Yeah.
come join us in Discord, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you, people. Have a nice one.
Catch you all later.
Viva la revolution.